Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
It's the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
You're heading up a team of 6 operatives, and they're all over the bar. There's the Cameloid, a green-blooded shapeshifter, trying to muster sexy time with a Deltan, a walking honey trap. 31's obviously using as a distraction. Except Cameloids are the only species in the galaxy immune to Deltan's sexy time charm. Then there's the guy with all the high-end mech, standing at the back, looking like he has thoughts.
Mech life, it ain't just about the brute force.
I'm gonna say heavy on artillery, low on IQ.
I'm so sorry.
And we can't forget the Vulcan laughing way too hard at the stage banter. And since Vulcans never laugh, he's either an idiot too or lost his mind during Ponfar and went insane.
Oh, come on, that was funny.
And the very serious human you stuck in with,
Reel it in anytime.
she's got a stick so far up her backside, it's coming out her mouth.
Just reel it in.
All right. Main question. Yes, hi, Jesse. Main question is, what the hell does Star Trek have against the Irish?
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
This is a problem.
That was in a ridiculous accent.
This is a problem. Okay. Hello.
When we find him, I have questions.
That wasn't even the Irish one.
Hello,
It's
everyone.
like from a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to cut our ship loose.
Okay, folks, there's going to be a lot of that tonight, I think.
I'm on autopilot.
A lot of that. Velkin.
So that's it. The almighty godsend.
Oh, my God. Okay, folks. Okay, here's what's going to happen.
What about this?
The Vulcan's just a machine.
The Velkin is my favorite. The Velkin. The Velkin. All right. So, this is the situation. The situation is you all are listening to the It's Got Star Trek podcast. Hi.
The Vulcan's just a machine. The Vulcan's just a machine.
So, welcome to the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
Awaiting biosignature confirmation.
We are doing, as it happens, what we're recording at the moment and what you are listening to now.
Who's listening?
The audience is listening.
Gather your people. We're gonna need every one of them.
I think everyone's going to be listening to this episode. All ears are on It's Got Star Trek to hear our views, and mostly Dan's sound clips, from this Section 31, this very controversial Section 31. So this is episode 275 of the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
And what delightful place is this?
Indeed. And
Bottoms up.
And on this episode, yes, we will be discussing Section 31, or strictly speaking, Star Trek, Section 31, because it's a movie.
Whoopsie.
It's a movie.
Doesn't it sound like listen to this one more time. Does this sound like something to you?
Whoopsie.
Like something from South Park?
Whoopsie.
Is it somebody pooping? Is it like Randy
The
fizzing or something?
the first 2 syllables.
Oh, it's Timmy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think it sounds like Timmy.
Yeah.
I did not catch that, but thank you.
I didn't catch that until like after I cut the sound and listened to it like a third time.
Timmy. I mean, now I can't not hear that.
I know.
Chief O'Brien.
All right, folks. So a couple of warnings.
Chief O'Brien?
Chief O'Brien.
A couple of warnings just at the top of this conversation. Warning number one. I think
Polana's on it.
there's going to be a lot of that.
Milana's on
A
it.
lot of what just happened. There's going to be a lot of that. If you're one of those... If you are one of those people who in your positive reviews say something along the lines of the sounds can get a little out of hand.
Blip, cliff, grip, blip,
Who says
cliff.
that?
You might have face some challenges
I
with
think
this
people.
episode.
Does
Blip,
anybody say that
cliff,
this guy gets out
grip,
of hand?
blip, cliff, grip, blip, cliff, grip.
Say scavenger!
He always plays that like the one measure too long.
Well,
Okay.
this the thing you're talking to.
So that's warning
He's the
number
master
one.
of timing.
Warning number two is this is a movie, and so we're going to let this podcast
It's a shitty movie.
breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
Jesse's given his opinion.
It's actually a good plan.
Oh shit! I blew
So
it.
we're, normally we try to keep it to around 90 minutes. We may go a little beyond that just to make sure we get in all of our very important points that we have to make.
So come with fries.
And give Dan an opportunity to play every single sound clip that he pulled.
Packs a punch. A happy punch. A happy punch.
It would have been funny if he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt and he was like, a Hawaiian punch.
Yeah, right. That just totally sounds like an ad
then
for
some
something.
dude,
It's like holding.
busted through the wall.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Now, a couple other notes. Jesse's back.
I'm back, baby.
You probably already noticed that. so
Because now Jesse's
he's
back.
back from paternity leave.
Because now Jesse's back.
It was rough, dude.
Well, it was rough for Dan and I, too, because...
I know. It's just the two of you. You don't know what to do.
Yeah.
How can we podcast without Jesse?
I know. You have to look at me.
We get a
Because
little,
Jesse's
get a
back.
little handsy, get a little antsy when Jesse's not around to keep us in line.
Yes, somebody has to abuse.
Mais oui, monsieur.
So we are glad that Jesse's back.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of voicemails. Both of them are related to Section 31.
No shit.
kidding.
Yes.
No shit.
Yes. So I figured,
We
why
should
don't we
play them.
Well, I'm about to. I'm getting right into that.
Fuck.
We'll get into. So what we're gonna do is we'll do the voicemails, and then just to give some outline and structure to this otherwise likely to be chaotic episode.
What the shit, man?
What the shit?
Our plan is to structure our conversation thusly. We will first talk about all the characters, because there's a bunch of new characters.
Why to me?
Then we'll talk about the direction and production design.
So watch your backs.
Then we'll go deep diving, wriggling around within the plot,
Reglan.
exploring all the corners of the plot.
Ouch.
And then any outstanding questions, because there's a lot. This movie raises a lot of questions. Both in-universe and meta questions, all sorts of stuff. So any questions that we didn't answer along the way, we'll have an outstanding questions section. And by that, I don't mean excellent questions. I just mean questions that are outstanding, as in have not yet been resolved.
Questions like, what the fuck?
And then we'll have our conclusions and wrap it up. So that'll be the plan. But first,
Why do you care?
but first, we'll start with our voicemails.
Hell yeah.
I just want to say that, like, I had so many notes that I took, like, at least twice as many notes as normal, and probably
This
even...
guy's full of notes.
Too many notes, just like the Emperor says in Amadeus.
Yeah, I have, like, probably more than twice as many notes that I normally took. So, like, the only way that I could figure out how to talk about what I want to talk about is to sum up, like, most of my notes into just a series of questions. And they're all questions why. Just
All right.
it's the
Why?
game. The
There's
game
a
is
lot of
called
why
The
questions.
game is called Why. And that's basically the only way I knew how to get through everything, because it's kind of stressful for me to do this right now because like there's so much shit to talk about and we have such a limited time to talk about it.
And audience, I can vouch for the fact that Dan is freaking out a little bit.
Question.
He's stressing out a little bit. So let's all team up. We'll work together as a team.
Let's take some breaths.
We want to get through this.
take some deep breaths.
And
I
state
can't imagine things getting much worse.
state everything that needs to be stated about this movie, at least from the It's Got Star Trek perspective. So many others have also or are in the process of providing their views as well.
Don't worry
so
about
to
what they
our
said.
British listeners, other podcasts are available. Okay, so let's start with a voicemail from our old friend Tarek.
Guy's cool.
Hello, gentlemen. Your old pal Tarek here out in the freezing, for us, Southwest. I must admit to being very intrigued with the mystery that was discussed last week. Dan was certain the review was from Patrick, but Patrick swore up and down it wasn't him. I have to agree with Patrick. The evidence is if it was him, the username would...
Okay.
What is
All right.
happening?
I'm going to rewind this and clarify. Just for folks. Oh, thank you, Dan.
Yeah, he paused for me. I missed it.
For folks who didn't listen to last week's episode, there's a couple things we have to explain. Thing number one.
Thing fart. You said thing fart.
I did not say thing fart.
You totally said
Sounded
thing
like
fart.
You said sing fart to me.
No.
I'm not joking, Lee.
By the way, Kara, a longtime supporter, Kara, on TOS at night, they were watching Where No Man Has Gone Before. I'm not jokingly thing, and she on Blue Sky, she was talking about how she's got that thing like we were talking about, Dan, where like you hear a sound clip so often out of context that when you hear it in context, it sounds different. So she said from listening to It's Got Star Trek, when she sees Where No Man Has Gone Before, when Gary Mitchell says "I'm not jokingly," like it has a different tone. It jumps out.
They know what they know because they learned it from one of you.
Yeah. Anyway.
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
Okay. To give some back. Very good, sir. You finally got that. You haven't had that before, right?
Yeah, no, I've never had this one.
I'm glad you finally got that.
Has this come up in the past?
Well, isn't that it's a pretty standard joke, isn't it? I learned it from you, Joe.
Yeah.
Seems like we usually do that joke.
I mean,
Hey, being Georgiou never helped anything.
At least for people of a certain age in the United States, the after-school special of like the kid who does the drugs, and then the dad
Just
is like,
say no.
"Where'd you learn how to do drugs?" And the kid's like, "I learned it from you." And
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
the dad's all like, "Oh man!" And then
But I guess that's what you're known for.
they do drugs together, and it turns out it's great. It's
Yeah.
like really fun to do drugs
Turns
with your
out
dad.
yeah.
It's like all cool to like smoke some weed with your dad.
It actually is.
You're actually a chaos goblin, aren't you?
All right. But anyway, Dan is demonstrating how adept he is at throwing me off topic. With he puts these little breadcrumbs out, and I nibble.
You can do better than that.
I nibble on them.
But pretzel.
So for background, we have a policy that says if you leave a review for us and then make us aware of this review on Apple, iTunes, whatever, wherever you want to leave a review. If you leave a review, Dan will write a custom bespoke haiku.
Not without an asymptote coil.
Now, we got a review a while back using the name, what was it? Is Dan Pooh.
Yes.
That was their username.
Yes.
And they were taking advantage of the fact that Dan, for reasons that he holds close to his vest, he's decided that his haikus that he makes are always based off of the username of the person who left the review.
I don't think there's much to explain. I don't think I'm keeping anything to my close to my vest or chest or whatever. It's a haiku. They're just like abstract, little word paintings.
And I'll note, Dan, in all of that garbage words, he did not provide an explanation.
Well,
provided a defense. He suggested the audience can assume what the explanation is.
There's no explanation to be had. Like, why does anybody sing a song? Why does anybody skip to the store? Why do anything?
Who skips to the store?
I don't know. I think people can sort of enumerate all sorts of reasons why they would do some of those things.
Boring.
All right. Yes. Indeed. Okay, so that's the background. We give haikus for reviews, and Dan bases it off of the username. So let me just rewind Tarek's voicemail just a little bit, and we will continue from here.
And the review was from Patrick, but Patrick swore up and down it wasn't him. I have to agree with Patrick. The evidence is if it was him, the username would be Dan Is Pooh, not Is Dan Pooh, a statement, not a question.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to this week's topic, section 31. I love the idea of this when it was first announced, but while I love seeing Michelle Yeoh back as Georgiou, the rest kind of fell flat. Sam Richardson and Robert Kaczynski were great, but the characterization just sort of meh. The cameo was amazing. I never thought I'd see that. The director and writers were all veterans of Discovery, but this felt more like a Star Wars or Mission Impossible movie more than Star Trek. I can only wonder if there was some studio fear that went into that. Anyway, looking forward to your guys' thoughts, and hopefully welcome back Jesse. Congrats on the new baby. But Dan and Patrick really need to be wrangled, or it'll devolve into them just making out for 90 minutes next week. Oh, and I will admit, Is Dan Pooh was me. I was really looking forward to that review haiku, and Dan, you nailed it. Well worth the extra waiting time. Talk to you guys later.
Mystery solved.
Sabotage.
Mystery solved.
I don't get it.
It was
Sabotage.
Tarek.
You don't get it. I don't get it.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
We're dangerous.
Good on you, Tarek.
Thanks, Agamus.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I'm glad that this was solved. This mystery was solved. I guess it wasn't. Excuse me. I'm choking on. So excited. I'm choking on my own spit. Okay.
Okay, let's do it!
Dan almost prolapsed his whole throat.
Yeah, I know.
Like a fucking shark.
Detonation sequence activating.
He's so legitimately excited to know who is Dan Pooh is.
And what I was qualifying what I was saying is that I said I'm glad we finally solved this. Actually, I didn't solve anything. Tarek just told me, but I'm glad it's resolved.
It's resolved
because I was in my head. The other day I was like waking up, doing my wake up thing, going chug brush, and go pee, and all that stuff, and I was like listing names in my head of who it could be. That was like
you just had a big fucking whiteboard. You're just like writing names and crossing them down, and then you're just like putting out your fucking hand on your chin. You're like, no.
And I have like thumbtacks with string tied between them, and I'm like sticking them in the board and like drawing pictures. And yeah.
Well, thank you, Tarek, and
thank you, Tarek.
I think your views are not that uncommon, and probably not too far off from at least some of the folks on this panel here on It's Got Star Trek. So
yeah, that was a very good sort of sum up of all the weaknesses.
Good sum them up. Good sum them up of the.
Who's I can't remember who he said that he liked in it.
Well, he liked Sam Richardson's character, which we'll get to. He's the cameloid.
Sam Richardson is
a good guy.
Right, and he's always funny.
I actually kind of like the character who played Dada. No, I thought he did pretty good.
The actor's good. Frankly, all the actors are good.
Well,
okay. Let's just say there's a lot of talent here. It's not all necessarily on the screen.
Right.
But before that, we'll listen to Jesse's voicemail. Not this Jesse.
We'll listen to Jesse's voicemail.
One of the other Jessies. In this case, Jesse from Crusher Convo.
Hey guys, it is Jessie from Crusher Combo, and I saw you recording tonight about Section 31.
Hello.
I did a live reactive review for my Patreon members, and I can literally tell you the only time I got excited was the very end when Jamie Lee Curtis popped up on my screen. I can't really say I hated it like most Trekkies have been posting about, but I can't say I loved it either. Maybe if I saw Discovery beforehand, I might have had a different reaction, but this being my intro to the show, it just didn't grab me like I hoped. Some dialogue like, "This dog bites," was cheesy, and the jokes fell flat. Sometimes there was jokey when there shouldn't have been, and it was extremely predictable. However, I think the actors did great and did the best they could for what they were given. I give it a 2.5 out of 5. Didn't hate it, but didn't love it. Can't wait to hear your reaction, and as always, live long and prosper.
Make no mistake, this dog bites.
There was just a lot of stuff that was just came out so goofy looking that it was just hilarious.
I told my judgment
it wasn't
to
necessarily
shut up.
supposed to be hilarious.
Take a nap.
It turned out so goofy.
Well, and Jesse,
like there was that guy with the shit in his face.
Well, that's the data
guy.
So
well, then actually that was Jamie Lee Curtis at the beginning. I thought it was her at the beginning. I was like, that sounds like Jamie Lee Curtis.
Sounds like Jamie Lee
so
Curtis.
So fresh off her hot role as Patricia Tannis in the Borderlands movie, she lands a cameo.
You think that's why she got this?
Yes, because the Borderlands got her this.
You think it has nothing to do with Everything Everywhere All at Once?
No, not, I'm just saying. Like, I don't think her last.
I think they hired her based off of her performance in Trading Places.
I'm just saying that,
and I'm not just saying that because of the boobs.
Well, all I'm saying is her last 2 appearances on screen, like by no fault of her own, haven't been in the best circumstances. I'll say Borderlands. I saw Borderlands.
You mean Borderlands and this one?
And this. I thought I liked her in it, but like.
What's around
it was like.
And by the way, we'll provide our full-throated opinions as well as a discussion of the reaction from the fandom towards the end of the podcast. But Jessie makes an interesting point, is that she hasn't seen Discovery. And one thing I'd note is that, yes, Georgiou is a character from Discovery, but I wouldn't really associate this movie, for better or worse, whether you're into it or not into it. It's a very different thing than Discovery.
It still had the camera shit. Like when the black suit phase dude with karate powers like appeared out of nowhere and started fighting Georgiou when he like threw her and the camera spun, and then she like tripped him and threw him and the camera spun again. So it definitely has Discovery influences because the director,
But it's not just Discovery. That's also sort of like Picard and even some Strange New Worlds. And we'll talk about some of the directorial choices in just a second here. But what I mean to say is that the story is really very disconnected from Discovery. I think the tone is very different. I think, Discovery, there's good, there's some troublesome stuff in Discovery, but it was in a different way. Like where Jesse's talking about, like, there's stuff in this movie that's just ridiculous. And I don't think we saw that much that was just ridiculous in terms of like the plotting and some of the acting choices and stuff in Discovery. So
I just want to point out, and we don't necessarily have to get to all of them, but I want you to know that for the game of why that I have later, where I just ask a bunch of why questions, there are 43 why questions.
Oh, I'm excited.
So I'm just letting you know there's a lot.
No, we're into this, Dan.
Okay.
We are here for this.
There's a lot of why.
Intrigued.
Yes.
I am mildly intrigued.
Again, the audience might be entertained to know that Dan gave us a similar, very sincere warning to Jesse and I before the podcast.
Yeah, but I didn't tell you exactly how many.
Well, you didn't
were
tell
there.
us but we could guess.
Okay, well,
we've known you for a very long
I just know that every time I give a list of stuff, it always goes on slightly longer than you expect it to.
Yes, and that's when you don't warn us. So when you're warning us, we can make a good faith assumption that it's going to be intense.
You are a monster!
And we are here for it. But anyway, thank you very much, as always, Jesse, for writing, and I'm a jackass, for commenting, voicemail them up.
She's been on our show.
Yeah, and she guest hosted once, and that was a super fun time.
I'm not joking, Lee.
Okay.
I was never joking, Lee.
All right. So, let's talk about the characters. Let's get into it, because the reason why I thought it would make sense to structure this conversation in part by starting with a discussion of the characters is because there's a bunch of new people, and it's easier to understand the plot and some of the other stuff that's going on if we first have a little bit of understanding about these different characters. Who did you want to start with? I mean, forget about, Georgiou. We know Georgiou very well. Happy to discuss her, but, should we start with
Quasi? Because he was the first one I think that was introduced.
Quasi? Okay, yeah, we can start with Quasi. Sam Richardson.
So he's a shapeshifter.
Cameloid.
We see him shapeshift exactly 3 times in the movie.
And I believe Cameloids, wasn't that what Imam from Star Trek 6?
Yes,
she said she was a Cameloid.
Really?
Yeah.
So the thing about
that's right,
and this is one of
he's got the same eyes as her.
This is one of the problems here. Is he? What I was just saying. He shapeshifts 3 times.
Yeah.
The first time he shapeshifts, he does it into. He doesn't actually do it. It's them flashing back, or like them telling what would have happened had they done their original plan.
They're telling, not showing.
Yeah. Then they're telling, and then they do show him shapeshift into Georgiou, but they never end up doing that plan. So that's irrelevant, basically. That whole discussion of like what they were gonna do is strange that they even included that.
Yes, we'll get to that.
Yeah. The third time he shapeshifts, it's at the end. I think they just threw it in because they wanted to add something, because
they forgot that he was a shapeshifter.
Because at the end he shapeshifted into I don't know if I should call him Alok or if
I like that you told
Sahar.
us about the first time and then the third time.
Well, it makes more because there's a reason
I
for
understand.
It.
I'm supporting you.
Should we call him Alok or Sahar? I don't know which one I should call him because he's Alok Sahar, so I don't know which better to call.
Let's not bother at all.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say we could say Sahar since we don't know him personally.
Okay,
it might be presumptuous to call him Alok.
So he shapeshifts into Sahar at the end because he's trying to fool Georgiou into thinking that he's Sahar.
Yeah. In fact, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, for some reason.
Well, it was a gag. Apparently it was a gag.
But it was an irrelevant gag. And like it was barely a gag. It was barely a gag because she's like, I recognize you because you're always nervous around me, which is a callback to the beginning part when he had that irrelevant rant after glial clusters. He started ranting about branching paths and lives and saying like, for example, I could be intimidated. I didn't know. Anyway, the second time was the only time that mattered.
Yeah.
Was the only time that we required him to be a shapeshifter. And they could have thought of something else, but that was the time was actually kind of cool where where Sahar fell off the speedy non-OSHA compliant maintenance platform or whatever the fuck that thing was, and then he
mining sled,
and he like turns into a goobot and like catches him, and that was kind of neat. Now,
Goobot, that's a show I would prefer to watch than the GoBots.
Yeah, the GoBots.
I watched the GoBots,
the GoBots,
but it was like, come on, it's not the Transformers.
So you have to ask yourself, why did they bother making him a shapeshifter in the fucking first place? Just because they needed something like that? And real quick, I want to argue that even though they're more dated, I think, and this is not me being nostalgic, but I think I want to make that clear because it's easy to think that. Okay. I think the special effects they used for Odo were better, more suited than this. Because even though the Odo's shape-shifting special effects look really dated, at least like it's kind of cool. You see him shift from one creature into another.
Googling
all they did here was cover him with a shroud of like digital effects.
There also wasn't any point to having a Delta either.
Well, I mean, right. There was not much point to having a lot of the things, and so instead of seeing him morph from one thing into the other, it's quasi Sam Richardson character. He's covered with a shroud of special effects, and then when the shroud goes away, he's whatever other character. Yeah. So it doesn't even show a transition. So it's like it
makes a face.
So it just looks ridiculous, anyways.
Yeah, I agree. I think they could have done more with this character, and I think a lot of the answers to some of your why questions, or I should say some of the answers to a lot of your why questions might be the fact that this was originally planned to be at least a season-long story, right?
Okay, that makes so much more sense.
And that what happened was they were trying to get it off the ground for a while. Things were difficult with Michelle Yeoh's schedule, and then she went and won the Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
And then suddenly became even less available than before. But she's a huge fan of Star Trek. She's a huge fan of this character, Emperor Georgiou. And so she was eager to make it happen. So
Regina under Philippa Georgiou, Augustus Euponius Centaurus.
Her name is Philippa Georgiou.
So to accommodate her schedule, they shrunk this down into a movie. And
that makes so much more fucking sense because
they were talking about it since her character appeared. That's like first season Discovery.
Yeah.
Actually, now that you mentioned, I seem to remember that I originally thought. Yeah, I seem to remember hearing that it was supposed to be a show, and I totally forgot that watching the movie because one of the big question is why did they bother to shoehorn this San and Georgiou love story together? We don't see any of it. We see no redemption. See no redemption. It goes from her being one way to her being another way, and there's no in between. There's no growth. There's just these sort of demarcations. Like these sort of like this sort of just these big blocks of change, and we don't see any of the in-between. None of the in-between. We're just told it happens. So when she's at one point when she's like, we can start over. It's like, what do you mean you can start over?
What are you even talking about?
Why would he want to start over? The last thing I heard is like you had a sword in his face and you treated him like your servant for 40 fucking years. Why can you suddenly, how dare you suddenly say you could start over? Because there probably was going to be some kind of relationship shit going on between him and San.
We can infer what would have happened if they had more time. No. I'm not defending the video. I'm supporting your point, Dan, please. We can infer that, yes, if they had multiple episodes to stretch out this story, she would have explained that the last time she saw him, she was still the Empress, and now she's had all this character growth, and she's actually changed as a person. But yes, that was not what we were provided in this movie, because boom, 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 it's just done. And getting back to the Sam Richardson character, Quasi, I think this is a character, probably it was one of the original characters. I'm just going to go ahead and assume all these characters are basically what they had planned to have as the characters on this TV show. And what I really liked about the conception of this character was the idea that a shapeshifter would be indecisive is an interesting and cute character trait that I could see them building on over time in an interesting way. I think what happened is they tried to squish that all into that characterization into a movie, and it sort of was haphazard and didn't make sense because there was no time for it to be contextualized.
Yeah, it was completely irrelevant to the movie. So, right.
Like you said, they didn't need a shapeshifter.
They didn't.
This is one of those this is one of those movies where you like get all the team together and you need all their skills. And actually, it turns out most of their skills you don't know.
The only thing Zeph's that was interesting. They said he was equipped with mech. I never think to use the word mech in that way.
Yeah, can we talk about Zeph now?
Yeah, and I was gonna say like the only thing that his special ability was used for is as a liability. It was a chance for Fuzz to take him over and fuck the shit up. There was never anything good done with his mech. It was just there so Fuzz could take it over and fuck everyone's shit up. In the heist that never was, you see him punching. Okay, they fucking Fuzz has to take over Dada No, and then they have to get a cyber dude to punch him out. Isn't he already controlling him? Why do they need a cyber dude to punch him out? Why do they need a cyber dude of all? If they're gonna punch him, why would they get a cyber dude? If anything,
they don't. They have Sahar. Sahar can do it exactly as good as him.
Yeah, I know, and I'm not even to that part yet because the cyber dude he's too cyber. If anything, that's dangerous because he might end up killing the dude, right? Okay, but then in the actual fucking thing that actually happened, it was Alak who did it anyways because he's an augment, and so apparently he's as strong as the cyber. I'm gonna lose my voice.
Okay, so Dan. Good thing we're just about up on break time.
Oh my god!
I was going to comment that in my notes under Zeph, all I have is what the fuck is this?
Yeah, I know.
And I'm going to elaborate on that when we get back from the break, which will be in just a moment. All right, you ready with your sound clip, Dan? You ready with your sound clip?
Oh, I think I've almost threw my voice out.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, so I will say the magic words. I'm going to say the magic words, and then Dan will play the sound clip, and then we'll be at break.
Well, that's not very spontaneous.
I'm just explaining to the people so they understand. I'm giving you time.
So they figure it. We're telling them instead of showing them.
I'm giving you time to catch your breath. Okay? All right. We will be right back.
Be careful, all right?
Clear.
Clear.
All right. We are back.
You have no idea what you started.
Because we have work to do.
This contest only ends when one of us is dead!
Let's get on with it.
Yes. We'll get to the contest soon when we talk about the plot.
Actually, the guy who plays San, he
was on Barry.
Yeah, he's a good actor.
He's a brilliant actor.
Right,
brilliant actor.
James Lau.
Yeah. The character, I don't know, but the actor, that's what I'm telling you. The actors, I think, by and large, are great. I'm not familiar with all of them, but most of them, I think they're like Sam Richardson's
cool.
Great. He's great on Detroiter. On Detroiters, he's great on. I think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. A lot of those sketches.
Yeah, and I did enjoy the lines he was given, even the lines that were bad lines. Like I enjoyed his. Delivery.
He probably had the best quips. Whereas Zeph, Robert Kaczynski, I liked the character. What was so stupid was the character.
Yeah,
because mech. That's not first of all, that's not like a Star Trek thing. And
you've never seen anything in Star Trek.
And if you want to introduce it, you have to introduce it in a way that's not so stupid. Like it's a guy wearing a suit, but he's all like mad that people think he's wearing a suit. It's like, no, you're wearing a suit. I don't care if it's like surgically implanted or whatever. Why does your suit look like you're wearing a suit?
Hold on. I don't know what that means, but I'm not going to just stand here and get insulted.
There's like a helmet that goes on it or whatever?
Yeah, I know. It looks like a suit. It doesn't look like... first of all, like I said, I've never heard the word mech used like that. Like usually there's like a mech or but like he has mech. He has mech.
I mean, I'm not... a mech.
What about Mecha Boom Boom?
Oh my God. Yeah, that was one of the many dumb lines that I had in this whole thing. Once again, I am having the issue where there's like way too many sounds that I took out of this, so it's kind of hard.
That's not an issue.
Yeah, well, it's hard when you're trying to find this.
Okay, so you're into Mecha Boom Boom.
One of the many silly lines.
There are a lot of silly lines.
Yeah. So Zeph's whole deal was he was like. He is the dumb muscle, but he thinks he's smart or something like that, or maybe he thinks he's philosophical or something like that.
But it was inconsistent because in some scenes it seemed like that character, yes, the character who's the Dunning-Kruger, too dumb to realize he's dumb kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But in other times he seemed to realize that he's dumb and take ownership of that fact that's his role, is to be the dumb muscle guy.
Yeah, there was actually there was a line by Georgiou. Who's too equipped with mech? There's this guy with all the high-end mech.
Does he get a load of this guy with his typing?
He's like
clicky, searchy.
She goes. She goes, then there's the guy with all the high-end mech standing in the back looking like he has thoughts. Now, it's never made clear how she knew that he was Section 31. Now, I don't know if she thought
it wasn't really made clear how she knew anybody was Section 31.
I know, right.
She just knew.
She just knew. Like, I guess the reasons between the...
She's badass.
Of Quasi and Mel, who's the Delta, is because, like,
Mel.
she knew because Cameloids are the only creatures in, like, the galaxy that can resist the Deltan's powers.
Yeah.
So
why couldn't they just be talking?
Yeah, I know. And if they were really,
you can still flirt.
And this is Section 30. This is Section 31. Okay, I'm getting off topic here, but like basically, Section 31, they've turned it into a cast of clowns. Like this is supposed to be like covert ops,
like
elite,
like a shitty heist movie.
This is like supposed to be elite covert ops, like kind of shit. And they picked the biggest, like most incompetent clowns. They implied that the people who went to Section 31 are like the ne'er-do-wells who they don't care if they die or not.
Right,
But the problem with this is when you have black ops, you're supposed to be like inconspicuous. And if you're a bunch of shitty if you have why get a Vulcan body if you can't even try to not like laugh your brains out at some shit? Like
and you have like this ridiculous accent.
Yeah, you're black ops and you're like the species with no fucking emotions, and yet you're not even like cracking a smile. It's not just like you cracked a smile accidentally or something or chuckled at something. He's at the bar going, ho 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 ho, and then when Mel tells him,
but it could have been Romulan.
And then when Lieutenant Garrett tells him to reel it in, he does a silly sip from his glass without his hands. Like
that. By the way, that's one of the silliest things in this entire movie is just inexplicably him bending over and drinking out of his cocktail glass without using his hands.
He couldn't have been any less Vulcan. And then you could say, well, that's the joke. I say that's a dumb joke because
it was all a dumb joke.
The devil's advocate would say it's because Section 31 is the one that gave him the body, and maybe that's all they had.
Okay, but Section 31, they're gonna do. Look,
but why is that the only body they had?
Look, I'm not trying to pull they wouldn't do this in the military. This is not even what I'm saying. What I'm saying is. Where this is supposed to be covert ops, and they picked like the
black ops.
They're supposed they picked like the most conspicuous, like ridiculous group of clowns.
Yes.
And they're totally ignoring the fact that they're supposed to be elite and inconspicuous. Okay. Anyway,
let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit more about Fuzz.
Fuzz.
He's a nanokin. Which is a stupid name. Normally, I'm not somebody who tries to harsh on the silly names, on the alien names. But one thing I like about Star Trek is, by and large, they don't have. Star Wars is the one that, and other places are the ones that are all like, these are the big heads, and they got big heads, isn't that, or whatever.
Did you notice that? I think it was the speed platforms. There was something that was making like a bubbling noise that sounded like a Star Wars.
I have it in my list.
It's like it was something like that. It sounded like a ship making that noise. It sounded like out of Star Wars.
And that scene specifically reminded me of Shadows of the Empire from the Nintendo 64.
I know exactly what you're talking
because
about.
I put the influences on this movie are Ocean's 11, Fifth Element.
The singer in the bar is the Fifth Element.
Fifth Element.
The whole thing looks like the fucking Fifth Element.
Shadows of the Empire is clearly another one.
Yeah.
But Fuzz is another example of a character that's really close to being interesting.
I'm Fuzz.
Like Quasi, but this accent.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if the actor picked the accent or the director. I don't know who came up with this.
I don't think the actor is Irish.
No, I don't think so either.
I think I briefly read something that said he didn't have a vocal coach or dialect coach or whatever.
Well, clearly,
but I'm saying it's I don't know whose idea
it's really. I mean,
it's a little bit.
It's an offensive Irish accent. I mean,
it's like does Star Trek still hate on the Irish?
Yeah, I've heard people from Ireland comment, both Northern Ireland and proper Ireland.
The almighty godsend.
Competency Crusader here will talk me through the tech on the implant. Competency Crusader here will talk me through the tech on the implant.
They're like, this is an offensive.
It's like
leprechaun accent.
Okay. Right, it's like a leprechaun accent or like a pikey.
Like in the TOS episode where Kirk is dealing with his bully. Well, there's Up the Long Ladder from TNG, which is really offensive to the sort of Irish people with these sort of quasi-alien Irish.
You sack of amorphous shit!
And then there's when Kirk encounters on the fantasy planet, Kirk encounters his bully from the academy, who is just a straight up fucking putting his fists up, like, I'm gonna get you, Kirk.
Bad news.
And then this. When this character starts talking, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Who made this choice and thought this was a good idea?
What is he saying here?
I guess you guys are all eternal nemesis, sexy evil tension and stuff.
I guess you guys are all eternal nemesis, sexy tension and stuff.
Yeah, I guess you guys are all, quote, eternal nemesis, comma, sexy evil tension,
nemesis.
Quote, and it's nemesis is what it's spelled.
It should be nemesis.
Well, it says, okay, I get you guys are all, quote.
They're each other's nemesis, so that would be nemesis.
Okay, well, that's not how it's. Well, there's also another time when she said me and San and me. Shouldn't it be San and I?
It depends on how you continue the sentence.
Yeah, I know, but I think in that instance, I feel
San and I danced together. They called Sam and me.
Right.
To the podium.
I think I'm gonna find that. No, I know it depends, but I'm pretty sure in that instance
it's always tricky. That's one of the trickier ones.
Yeah, it says I get you guys are all, quote, eternal nemesis, sexy evil tension, quote, and stuff. I guess I kind of get what they're saying, but it's a really weird. I agree. It's really weird.
Yeah, how it is. There's a lot of weird stuff in this episode, and a lot of that weird stuff comes from Fuzz.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. When you were talking about, before I forget, the me and San, back to that thing. So here's the context it was used in. Two of us still live. San and me and San, we are two but one. So when you're saying San and me, we are two but one, wouldn't that be San and I, we are two but one?
Well, the first, because it would be, certainly for the live, the San and I live.
Because you wouldn't say me are two but one. You would say I am two but one.
Well, I mean, you see where she's from.
I mean,
she might not.
I don't think that plays into I don't think the writers.
There's like a dirt farm. I don't know what that is. That could be like they messed up the earth. That could be fucking Pennsylvania.
I don't think the writers took that into account when they wrote that line. I don't think they were like, she's from this planet, so she's gonna say.
You just think they just don't know how to write English.
That could be like Pennsylvania, and they turn it into a desert.
It is. It's one of the many odd things that stand out in this that sort of speak to lack of quality that at least some people are perceiving.
I'm inside.
No.
Okay, so then Casey,
it's like a Irish pirate. Or
Casey Roll is Rachel Garrett, who is the
she's cool.
She's the least. What was the term you used, Dan? Where like these ridiculous or whatever, like these people,
clowns, rejects,
right?
So she seems like a capable person, like the type of person you'd actually expect to be on a covert mission.
Yeah, right.
Except she is so by the book. She keeps making idle threats about how she's going to bring down all the force of Starfleet if they don't play by the rules.
I'm Starfleet.
But she's on the team that doesn't play by the rules. Yeah. She's on the team that does all the shit that they don't want anyone to know about because they're breaking the rules. And she's trying to pull the "you better follow the rules" card. So that's my problem with her is that it's too far.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Like she should.
It's Section 31.
It's Section 31, man.
Yeah, exactly.
This is insane.
Exactly.
My problem.
Chaos.
My problem with Rachel Garrett was not that she was in this movie. It was not Casey Roll's performance. I actually was really charmed by Casey Roll's performance. I really like this character. I would like to see more of this character. The problem with Rachel Garrett in this movie is that there's not much point to her in this movie. She doesn't really do much of anything. She's not really that core to the plot.
Well,
and we all know that Rachel Garrett will one day captain the Enterprise C, and there's the whole Yesterday's Enterprise stuff. That's the time we've seen that character before.
Can't believe you're trusting this sociopath.
Was it Discovery or was it Strange New Worlds? I can't remember now, but there was a statue of Rachel Garrett. Maybe it was Picard. It was probably Picard. But there was a statue of Rachel Garrett. Yeah, I think it was Picard. So we've had some references to the character. We saw the character in Yesterday's Enterprise. It was cool to see her at an earlier stage in her career here, but That's all it was. It was basically an extended Easter egg because she's didn't do anything.
And there was this
None
sort
of those guys did it.
There was this sort of texture I think they were trying to add about her character, that she's like a secret wild child or something. At least Georgiou was trying to say, but
she's like buy the books with OCD, but then also likes to get wild on the weekends.
I didn't know what to make of any of that.
Yeah,
It was
because
completely confused.
Yeah, because like there once again nothing was shown that would indicate that she was anything
in
but
a season. Maybe we would have seen all sorts of clever little stories that would lead us to that shift.
Here's one line I thought was silly.
Oh, I love chaos. Chaos is my jam. I love chaos. I love chaos.
Which I know what they were going for there. What they were going
said,
for
like, it's my
is
friends with
it's a
benefits.
person who doesn't like chaos, who is trying to sort of do a mantra while they're having to deal with something crazy. In order to deal with that craziness, they do this line.
It's weak.
But the chaos is my jam. I wasn't buying it.
It's unearned, is what it is.
Yes.
It's unearned. If this was taking place in episode 8 of a 10-episode season, it'd be like, okay, now it's earned because we've seen her stick up the assness over the course of the season.
I thought it's a lot of the word choices throughout this movie, like chaos is my jam. Like with this one, Jesse just mentioned.
Chaos is my friends with benefits.
Like that was kind of silly. Georgiou had a bunch of weird ass lines, like the mecha boom boom, and like she had a few other ones in there too.
She's a pervert.
Yeah, like you said, nothing in this movie was earned. Nothing in this movie was earned. Do we still have any characters?
There's a couple. We touched base on San, but I didn't know if you wanted to talk more about him. And then Melee. Or Mel?
I think it's just Mel.
Mel? But it's spelled Melee, but there's Mel because Mel is, I guess, is the typical name for a 1920s broad. Right? Is that the idea?
That's amazing.
Like her whole role,
Melba.
The only point of her role is so she could get killed, so they could raise the stakes. But the problem again, it's unearned because they don't give her any fucking personality. They don't give her anything to do. They introduce her, they kill her off. We don't have a reason to give a shit about her. Once again,
are you copying my notes, Dan?
I know.
This is exactly what I said.
Right.
It was like they fridged this girl.
Yeah, right.
They're like, oh, here's a girl. She's cute. She's bald. She's Delton. She has magic powers.
She's got.
And she got phasered a la the captain in Star Trek 2.
I don't get your prime directives in a bunch.
Where she doesn't just disappear. She's all like, her getting shot with a phaser was kind of cool.
Yeah, it
was one of the cool special effects in this movie.
But like, it was definitely just like, look, she's dead, and we know that she's part of the team, so that means you're supposed to be more invested in this movie now. And
but it happened at the beginning, and we're just like, I don't know.
You are not going to get your hands dirty and mess up your chances of becoming captain.
I like the character. I was sad to see her go, and that's again one of those things where it's like it
was a waste.
The writers think, like you said, Dan, the writers think, we've shown the audience don't trust anything, don't get too attached. But it's like, okay, but you killed what seemed to be a very interesting character that was very well performed. So you're kind of like, okay, you've just taken away something that was
we
kind of
don't even know if she was an interesting character because they never.
No, but there was the possibility.
There was an outline of something there, but we never got to see any of it.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying is that again, you know how this would have been effective in a 10-episode series. Yeah. She dies in episode 3. Not in the first 5 minutes or whatever of the story. Again, I think compression might have hit it there. And she was played by Humberly Gonzalez.
Humberly?
I think, I don't know. That's what the name was on the website. James Hiroyuki played, James Hiroyuki Lau plays San.
Right.
And again, you already mentioned, he's a great actor. He was brilliant on Barry. If you haven't seen him, seen Barry, check it out. Otherwise, I didn't understand the motivation of this guy. Nothing was clear. I don't know what his plan was.
Okay.
This is all...
Yeah,
it was
lame.
Upsetting to see so much talent being put into a given weird dialogue and weird motivations that just did not carry through in a sensible way.
What was my problem there was what my problem with the plot here with the looming issue is why the Terrans were coming over. Now Dada No says they were coming over because they're ran
out of stuff.
They ran out of stuff. Okay, they ran out of stuff. They have nothing left, so that's why they're coming over. But no, they didn't just come over because they ran out of stuff. It seems like the godsend going missing was the hair that broke the camel's back, right? Because he was like the exact. Okay, I have to find the exact line. It says,
"You have to."
I have to.
Hey, by the way, while he's looking that up, audience, you notice he's calmed down a little bit. We took a long time on the break. Jesse and I took turns massaging Dan and
my butt cheeks,
sort of rubbing. You sort of rub his pressure points on his palms,
on my butt cheeks,
and a few on his butt cheeks because he insisted.
Yeah,
but it seems to have worked out.
And he put a feather on my butt cheek. And both of them.
On your butt cheek?
On my butt cheek.
Just like you just gently laid a feather on your butt cheek?
And then you massage the feather into my butt cheek.
So we had a few different feathers.
So here goes. This is Dada No. He says the Terran Empire has burned through its resources. There's famine. Entire ecologies are collapsing. They need to find a new territory to conquer and strip mine. Okay, fair enough. When they realize that their super weapon is gone, they're gonna find that passageway. You know they will, and they'll come. And then I'm immediately thinking, wait, why does it matter whether their super weapon is missing or not if they're just coming here to get resources anyways?
Why would they assume it was over here?
Yeah, okay, yeah, there's a ton of questions here. Right. And so like the super weapon, it's like it's gone missing. Why is that the catalyst that finally gets you to come over here? And then he says, and they'll burn everything they touch and enslave the rest because that's what the Empire does. So are they coming over because they're out of shit and that's what they do? In throwing this extra godsending bit, like I don't know why that was supposed to be part of the motivation, because if all it takes is a couple ion storms colliding to create a passageway, you'd think that would have happened in the past before.
Well, it happens in Star Trek all the fucking time,
right? Yeah. And so
what happened in TOS.
So why didn't they come before now?
Mirror.
Now there's also the issue though of San. He apparently is leading this charge. This is what I'm unclear about.
It's totally unclear.
It's unclear because he has the godsend, and he's like. I can't tell if they're leading us to believe that he is like going, like he got treated so poorly by Georgiou that he turned heel and turned into a super mega evil dude that's
going to vaporize everybody.
He
helped build that shit.
So he's part of that crew that's coming over to zap the Prime universe. I'm not at all clear. And if
no clue what the actual plan is.
And if both of those things are true, then we have two motivations. We have one: are they out of resources so they're coming over? Or two: has San turned heel and led the charge into because he's so mad at everyone? And why do they come there? Like why do they assume they come there? Why did they assume that there was a saboteur in their midst when the ship blew up? That's a totally different subject, but why do they assume these things?
Didn't he already commit suicide?
Well, that's the thing. He faked his suicide, and so if he faked his suicide, it meant he had some plan of some sort.
Yeah.
Even if that plan was simply to escape being under the thumb of Georgiou, it was still he had some plan that he put into effect, and we don't know how long Georgiou continued to rule before the events of Discovery.
Right.
After that, when she got pulled over into the regular old Prime universe.
You know who didn't fake their own death was the engineers that built the Godsend. Because they built the Godsend, were so upset by it that they killed themselves. Why didn't they kill themselves? If they were so horrified by it, why didn't they kill themselves?
Build it and then kill themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Why did they wait to build it and then kill themselves?
You know, to be fair to them, it could be
maybe they didn't realize it till after what they were making.
No. You had to have realized it while you're building it. But I could see somebody, it just not occurring to somebody who's like, you build the thing, then you're like, oh shit, I totally could have killed myself. I'll kill myself now because I feel kind of stupid that I didn't kill myself before. Because I'm even more motivated to kill myself now than I may have otherwise been. But it just did not even occur to me that I could do that.
This is insane.
You never know. Living under a dictatorship, that sort of thing can happen.
Well, this is great.
All right, how about this? I think we covered the characters, or at least as much as we need to. Let's move on and discuss some of the direction and production style. We've already made a few references to perhaps some issues. Dan, you talked about spinny cut. You described that as being a Discovery thing, and primarily it was, but it's also Picard did that a lot. It's a lot of modern Star Trek is kind of does this frenetic camera movement, which I'm not a huge fan of for a variety of reasons, but one of them being in a fight scene, especially a fight scene with Michelle fucking Yeoh, who's really good at this shit. That's like one of the things she's famous for. That type of shot and all this frenetic editing takes away from the fight.
Yeah.
And I know, you could say, oh, they're doing that to hide some of the seams or, okay, sure. But I've seen...
It wasn't necessary.
I've seen Michelle Yeoh on Discovery do really cool fight scenes that are not as frenetic, right? That's why I differentiate this from Discovery. I think this was even more ridiculous, lots of fast zoom ins and shaky cams and super cuts and just like even some of the things that were supposed to be slow.
Did you ever go to Supercuts? I never went there.
No, never.
So remember, you might recall back when we first covered years ago, we covered the Picard season 1 premiere, the pilot of Picard.
What's a pilot?
One of my complaints on that pilot that I otherwise quite liked, there were a few parts, particularly at the beginning of the pilot, where they were doing these montages, but they were doing them really fast. But it wasn't a fast thing. Like a fast montage is like your fight training or something. This wasn't. This was Picard like walking around his vineyard, but it kept like switching the scenes real quick. And that happened again here in this episode, where there was a lot of just like, it was meant to be like in the dirt village stuff. Where she was meeting her family. There was like, why does it keep switching so quick? It's not, you're supposed to be making me feel all cozy and at home and lull me into like some sort of certain mood before you pull the rug out from under me, but you're making me all tense because of this switching scenes so much.
Now that you mention it, I do remember a specific scene in Strange New Worlds where like they were going through like a hole in the ground to go like under the deck or something like that. And when they went under, the camera like flipped upside down for like no reason. That's the other thing, is there's just no reason for a lot of it.
It's a flare and sometimes a flourish, I should say.
Yeah, but like sometimes it's just like, oh.
I would say most of the time it's a flourish. There still needs to be purpose. Like I guess one way to define a flourish is that it's by definition not necessary. But I don't necessarily subscribe to that definition. I think even a colorful flourish should have something behind it. You should be intending to have the audience feel a certain way. And I'm presuming they didn't just want us to feel nauseous, because often I'm not that old, but sometimes I'm watching this stuff and I'm like, this is just making me feel a little nauseous.
He's either an idiot too or lost his mind during Ponfar and went insane.
This
is insane.
Fun fact, just real quick, Dan, because the audience does occasionally say that, we don't talk a lot about our, backgrounds and personal lives. Occasionally we let little tidbits out. And a fun fact about Dan is that he lost his mind because of Ponfar once.
Yeah, just once.
Yeah, just the one
This
time.
is insane.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Here's another question for you. I know my answer to this. Did you think that this production design in any way evoked early 24th century Star Trek? To me, it didn't.
No.
To me,
it evoked the Fifth Element.
It just did not seem like there was any effort made to be like, this is in between like the TOS movies and TNG.
Not at all.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be, so Discovery takes place 2255 to 2259. Yeah. TNG takes place 2364 to 2370. This takes place around like 2324. So in between.
Early 20.
Yeah, before TNG, after Discovery. Right. And like, for example, there was that weird like, dress/cape thing that looked like a dragon's tail that Georgiou had when she was standing. I couldn't figure out what that thing that was.
It was a hologram tail.
It was a hologram tail.
And one of my questions, one of my outstanding questions was, hologram. Why does she only wear the hologram when she's in private?
Yeah, I know. That's what I was wondering. It's like when they come.
As soon as Sand comes in,
it goes away.
She's like, oh, let me turn this off.
Yeah, it's like you're just getting like some personal jollies from knowing that it's back there. Like, and it's behind you, so it's not like you get to look at it.
And she's like walking around. Does it like tug on her a little bit?
Holograms?
Is it just comforting to feel the weight?
Holograms?
Of the
You don't get it.
Speaking of that fight scene between like that mysterious like black suit phase dude with karate powers guy that was just so egregiously like
it was like an Ant-Man, the ghost character who just is like, oh, you're doing stuff, and then this other person just comes in, and starts phasing through walls and shit.
And we gotta figure out a way for it to go away somehow. And like why when it went on the ground, he opened it up and like carefully slowly took it out and then zapped away with it. I don't know why he did that. Why did Georgiou's like phase pod malfunction right when she was in the wall?
What was that? That was fucked up.
Yeah,
that
why
was
didn't
completely pointless.
It's totally pointless. And why didn't it crush her ankle? I don't know. I know we're getting in the world of like made up sci-fi shit, but at the same time, when you phase into a wall, something's got to give. You know?
No.
I don't know, and I don't think that's me being too nerdy. Like, but
I did like the idea of the phasing fight.
I did like that
and
too.
elements of it that were fun were going through the room where the people were having sex, and every time they came through the room, it got more and more ridiculous. Like first they were just having sex, then they were all like, oh, and had phasers, and they like escalated it.
That was another purpose of Zeph. He got to punch through a wall, but we didn't actually really need that because they were, anyways. But
it was silly.
But then that fight scene when they go flying off the second floor onto the bar, you're looking like that. You're like, oh shit. And then in case we couldn't figure out, oh shit, they close up to Quasi, who goes,
yikes.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, it's
so
like
stupid.
That was one of the few times they showed us, but they still felt like they had to tell us. It's like, yeah, I see, yikes. That's what happened on the screen. And it's like a close-up. It's like, yikes. And it wasn't even like a clever quip. It was just, yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
That whole fight scene with the phasing and stuff evokes the next phase. It evokes other times Star Trek has had people walk through walls but not fall through the floor. With the headcanon always being like, oh, it's the anti-grav plating or whatever that affects the phasing. Okay. But apparently not walls, except occasionally when it works for the plot to make the plot more interesting. The wall will catch your foot. Whatever. Oh, and by the way, Georgiou has this special unique device, and so does the person who's fighting her. Now, you could say, oh, it's because it's San, and maybe the technology is from the mirror universe.
Is that San? Is that San?
That's San.
Mm-hmm. When does it ever say that that's San?
You see him take his helmet off.
Really?
Later on. Yep.
How did I miss that?
It's San later on.
I didn't catch that till my second viewing.
There's so much shit that's going on that like I can't keep track of what's happening.
It was only on the second viewing that I was able to confirm that it was San.
Okay, fuck. Well, that answers a question for me.
Well, there you go.
See, not all my questions.
So now you're down to like 40 questions.
Well, here's the thing. I know it's easy for me to like have all these snarky why questions, but like some of them I'm legitimately like, why I think there might be an answer that I just missed, and that was one of them. Yeah. So I'm glad that was answered.
A couple other production-related things. That whole executing encryption protocol, that was silly.
Are you talking about when the godsend fell on the ground and then it suddenly went off?
It was at the beginning and at the end, basically, where it was a framing device where we see a little circular communicator thing that sort of plops open, and it's all like executing encryption protocol. Blah blah blah. Blah Section 31 with this assignment. It's the Mission Impossible. shit.
Right.
And with all the fucking, it's all rotating in the graphics and it's all.
And Patrick, sometimes you talk about how like you'll watch a Star Trek like TNG, that episode where they show they're watching clips from earlier in the episode. They did that in this, except for other shows.
Yeah, they were watching Discovery.
Yeah, because it's like they're in the middle of some intense battle scene, and there's this like camera work, like all close. It's like, is there some invisible camera that floats around them at all times to take like really dramatic shots so they can give these debriefings later?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Shit! It's a time for a break.
Oh my god! Can you believe it?
I can. So we will finish up the direction and production style discussion when we get back from break, and then move along to the plots. So we will be right back.
He thought your mama 4.
Yeah, he's on your mama 4.
I don't even understand what he said. What did he say?
He says he thought your mama 4. He thought, quote, your mama 4 in Roman numerals. And then Quasi responds with, oh, your mama 4 Roman numerals.
Okay, this movie's fucking inexplicable.
He thought your mama 4.
Okay, now for real, we'll be right back.
Oh, we're still on?
I was fucking confused by that shit. All right, we'll be right back. Okay, we have returned from the most recent break.
Stay low and tight, people.
Indeed we will. All right, let's wrap up this section on the...
Section 31?
Oh my god, Phil, I fucking walked right into that shit. The direction and the production style. A couple things I was aggravated by. I was aggravated by the very fast transporters. In the flashback to the scene where Georgiou kills her whole family, and then afterwards becomes Empress, or afterwards becomes Emperor, and they beam down all the troops, I guess, or legions of troops.
Yeah, I don't know exactly who that leader
was. It's a really big spaceship.
Was that like the military leader who was talking to her?
I don't know.
It's the proctor.
She says,
I don't know. It was crazy. I mean, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that whole Hunger Games shit later. But the fast transports in the 22nd century, I don't like that. Those transporters were as fast as they were in like Picard.
Right,
and the idea is that over time the transport special effect gets faster, both because people, you lose patience. We have less patience and attention than we used to, but also in universe, it's the technology's better. So boom, you get like instant transports. You can tell me, oh, they're warlike, whatever. Nah, the mirror universe, they were always sort of like a similar technology level, right? Didn't like the fast transporter.
I thought, and on the one hand, I enjoyed the shot of the ship landing. I thought it was a badass shot because you got to see, I thought it was like perfectly framed how it was showing her standing there, and you see this ship that's just enormous landing, and you really get a sense of scale. And then it shows that shot over top where it's like dwarfing mountains. I thought that was really cool. Completely unnecessary though. I don't know why they bothered to land the ship if they were just going to transport out anyway.
And
I don't know
what kind of ship was that, because
it was huge.
Why didn't it look more like Federation-y style? Because again, the mirror universe is supposed to be a fucking mirror.
That's why I say I liked the effect out of context. I thought it was a really cool shot, but like in context, it's like why is any of this?
It sort of doesn't make sense because look, again, I know what they're trying to do here, and the mirror universes never make sense logically. Like we get it. It's supposed to be a metaphor. The whole point of the mirror universe, the whole point of Star Trek, is to hold a mirror up to your fucking real world,
Leo clusters,
and make some points. And in the TOS episode Mirror Mirror, part of the point was that these people are extremely similar to us, but that a slight change, a slight difference in decision making can result in hugely different outcome, right? So that's the deal. That we don't get to see here because the mirror universe is completely different and bears no relation, unlike it did in TOS and in Deep Space Nine, which did it for the same reasons, because you wanted it to be close to make those comparisons.
At first, after I watched this, I was convinced that this movie was written completely with AI. Like for a while, I was like,
the music sounded like it was.
I was gonna say that. That's one of my things here. Is like, are these real songs? Because they sound like the AI songs that we had the AI make.
Right. So
precisely.
So the script, I was thinking like, there's nothing connects. It seems like they're throwing things in there for like. There was one scene where Quasi and Ayla, the whole crew is where there's that whole scene where there is the antenna array and they have to get on the garbage scow, and then Sahar goes like, let's get that scow running, and then like Quasi goes, boss, it won't fly. And he's like, yes, it will. I've got a thing. And it's like, where'd you get that? Oh, like, off screen, like off camera, like 10 minutes ago. And so that whole bit of drama was invented and resolved in the same breath.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like they didn't need to have that there. They invented a problem. For some reason, it's like, garbage scow won't run. Oh, won't run? Well, I got this. Cool, let's go. Like, why was that even in there? There was no tension. It didn't affect the plot. It didn't cause us to make us wonder what was going to happen for the next 10 minutes. They were just like, tension, okay, resolve the tension. That happened in about 10 seconds. 10 seconds of tension right there,
No, I agree. And they had mentioned earlier when they went to the garbage scow, they were like, oh, this thing is missing. And then a little bit later, the guy's like, oh yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
Because I took it out for this exact purpose.
Well,
it's like, okay, so you already knew about that thing, and ahead of time you did this on the event. There was a mole. Well, like, why'd you do that?
Well, why
would you do that in the first place?
The thing he found was he called him an asymptote coil. I think it's supposed to be an asymptote coil.
Yeah.
I
mean, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Somewhere I have asymptote coil in here. Anyways, that's what Sahar found was the asymptote coil.
Not without an asymptote coil.
Right? But I think there was something actually different missing from the antenna array. When it got sabotaged, I think that was...
No, I'm not talking about the antenna array. When they go to the garbage scow, they are trying to fix it. They're having a walk and talk conversation. They're looking around, and that's when at one point they like bump the thing and they lift up the thing and there's like a missing piece, and they're like, right. we don't have this, so we're never going to take off. And then they give up that plan because they're all like, we're missing that thing. But it's because Sahar previously, again, we're not sure why, but for whatever reason, previously removed that. That's the implication. And again, if this was if they had more time to tell this story, they probably would have been more explicit. But my understanding, my reading of that is Sahar, at some mysterious point in the past, removed that from the ship for the purpose of being able to pull it out when it was necessary. Getting the foot stuck in the wall, like Georgiou getting the foot stuck in the wall, it kind of only makes sense for the plot.
There's
not for like a real plan.
There's some confusion though, because the garbage scow won't run, but the antenna array also has to be fixed. There were two things that need to be fixed.
But that's a different, but the thing he had was for the garbage scow.
Yeah, the thing he had was for the garbage scow.
The antenna array was just that they ripped all the fucking wires apart.
Yeah, exactly, precisely. And so, like, when they said the garbage scow wouldn't run, they didn't really... I think that was just introduced the moment Quasi said, but it won't run. Like, I don't know. Like,
they were in the garbage scow, and look, trust me, when I've watched this too many times. It's another thing I caught on the second pass, because they did not need to introduce two problems.
That's what I'm saying. And one of the problems...
I know, and I'm agreeing with you.
Right.
But just to be fair to the writers, it's not like, because you were saying, they introduced the problem and solved it in the same breath. I agree with you in principle. It's just like, in fact, they did introduce the problem earlier that this thing was missing, but we didn't know what the thing looked like. It's just a tubular looking empty space. And then later we
someone must have scavenged it for the terbium.
But
then so I'm starting to wonder now if maybe though that they because they had... So I feel like this was AI assisted in some way. Like they took all the plot points of the whole season and then asked the script to spit out
to make it into a movie.
Make it into a movie or something. I don't know. I might be going too far.
I hadn't considered that, and you may be going too far. And the Writers Guild of America might want to look into this. I don't know. But you're kind of right. There's decisions here that are a little bit inexplicable. They feel close to what a TV movie should be, but they don't quite go together properly. It's kind of like trying to build something out of Legos and there's fake Legos. And you're like, why is this it's not quite working? It looks like it should work, but this line doesn't quite match up with this other thing.
Yeah, they totally didn't need to introduce the whole asymptote scow thing because the antenna array was already fucked up.
Or forget about the antenna array. Right? Because they forgot about it. Once the garbage scow got working, they were like, okay, fuck the antenna array, we'll just fly away.
Yeah, and with the antenna array, they went looking for it, and there was a semi-clever sort of thing that went on where Zeph stole it and ran away and made them chase after him, and then he came back and used it and blew it up. I mean, that was a reason for something to happen. That was passable, but the asymptote coil, they basically said this thing is missing, and it's like, oh, now we found it. There was never any sort of point.
Well, and it wasn't actually missing,
and there was never.
Sahar just secreted it away for this exact plot purpose.
Yeah, right. So it was just they just said some stuff happened without showing us anything that happened. Yeah. Once again,
any other production stuff, or shall we move along to the plot? We talked about the fighting. We talked about the camera angles. And we've been a little negative on the production. There's a lot that was good. A lot of the special effects were pretty cool. The phasing stuff was cool. The dusty drugs was silly but kind of cool.
I thought it was a little out of place because they didn't really do anything like it later, but I thought it was kind of cool when they showed the Terran Empire. They did that circular shot and showed it's what is this piece of garbage? This is the Terran Empire, but the whole thing, I guess, where I wasn't clear on is the Terrans are people or is there a Terra?
Terra, we live on Terra.
We live on Terra, right?
Terrans are human.
You're human. So this is Earth. That the Terran Empire was that Earth.
Terran Empire ruled over many planets. So we would have no clue. What planet Georgiou's
basically
Georgia.
So the Empire grows wherever the Emperor is from, because they were saying Terran Empire, showing this Georgiou's little dirt farm village or whatever.
Terran Empire. They're in the Terran Empire. As in, if you were in the Federation, you could be on Vulcan. You could be on Earth, you could be on Mars. That's in the Federation.
See, usually when they do that, though, they put it in the lower corner of the screen. This made it seem, the way they zoomed around it, it made it seem like they were saying this is the Terran Empire.
Well, that's a mistake.
Before that, but then Georgiou became the Emperor, and she grew it up into this amazing thing.
No, because the Empire actually was probably maybe already towards decline at this stage, because it ends up declining not long after, because the Kirk mirror stuff happens after Georgiou is no longer Emperor.
That's why it's confusing, because if you watch a fantasy show or something, they'll show an establishing zoom around shot of a city, and they'll name the city, and they'll have the name of the city in Game of Thrones or something. They'll use, that's often how it will go. And so when I was looking at it, I'm not saying that this is that this is what they were doing. But to me, when I saw them pan around the city and they put the big title, to me it made it seem like they're saying this is the Terran Empire.
I hadn't considered that, but you're right. I think that's a bad choice on their part if that's what it's accidentally conveying. Clearly, they weren't conveying that because the Terran Empire is a it spans the whole Alpha Quadrant at least, if not some of the Beta Quadrant as well. What they should have done is more like a Star Trek V, where Star Trek V says Nimbus 3 somewhere in the neutral zone. If they want to be, they could say Planet X in the Terran Empire. Then you'd understand this is a unit of the Terran Empire.
But they could have also, when she became the Emperor, she could have also taken that bit of land and grown it up into something like city-like.
Yeah, but that's not our understanding of what happened.
Might have been.
No, the Terran Empire is supposed to be this huge empire already at this point.
Yeah, but she moved the headquarters into that place.
And they have these giant ships and just beamed down 100,000 troops.
Yeah, why not?
That they didn't have before. She invented that.
No, they moved over because she's the Emperor. She can command them to do it.
Okay.
But like I was saying, the shot of the ship landing, like I said, that was a really cool shot. I thought that was a really neat special effect. It just didn't make any sense.
There's a lot of good special effects. There's some wonky ones, but a lot of it was actually pretty good. It's just the actual visual choices. For example, the ship, the nightclub ship, that did not look like an early 24th century nightclub ship.
It looked like some weird, it looked like it was a weird design. It looked like it could fit 1 billion ships, and it looked like it was made out of rope or something.
It looked basically exactly like the 31st century Discovery Federation headquarters,
Those little spokes that were coming out of it, to me, looked like leather straps for some reason.
It was attractive. But it was completely out of time. This looked like a 31st century thing. It did not make any sense. Again, I think the production made little to no effort at all to visually locate this within the Star Trek, the existing Star Trek timeline. And that's a shame because a lot of people were looking forward to this era that has not been seen before in Trek. I think it's an important thing to note is that this is kind of the quote unquote lost era, the Enterprise C era and the 20, 30 years beforehand, that space and time between Star Trek 6 and the start of TNG. There's this whole span of time, 70 years or so, where all these important things happen. The Klingon stuff with the Romulans and Khitomer, the Khitomer Accords, the Enterprise C stuff. There are all sorts of interesting things. Cardassia, interacting with Cardassia and stuff. And we didn't get to see any of that. This movie could have been in any time period because visually, from a production angle, no way to know where this is supposed to take place. In fact, I was very puzzled because I know it was advertised to take place in the early 24th century. I know it had a young Rachel Garrett, presumably 20 or 30 years before she was the captain of the Enterprise C. So that gives you some idea. But beyond that, I don't know. And by the way, talking about Sand's plan, why is Sand still alive? Because Georgiou is from the 2250s. And this is 2320s or whatever. Maybe he's still alive from the mirror universe, but did he also time travel? Why does he not look older? Shouldn't he be like way older than her if he's just still alive? Like that doesn't make any fucking sense. And so it's one of the many things that contributes to confusion or temporal confusion when you're trying to figure out what's going on. And I think one of the problems that introduces is that the story is already problematic. It's cliched. It's a simplistic story in a lot of ways. But then you get all this tension and confusion because you're like, I don't know. They're telling me when this is supposed to happen, kind of. But when is it supposed to happen? The visual cues just don't make any sense.
So it was interesting that there were some good effects, but then there was like Zeph's suit, which was like, it looked like, it wasn't a suit. It was supposed to be like his body or whatever, but like it just looked like a suit. It didn't look.
It was one of the least impressive of the special effects.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of cool that like that maintenance platform, like when she was battling with San,
the Shadow of the Empire, Shadows of the Empire.
When she was battling with San, it was cool at the end shot when she was out in the middle of like nowhere, like hundreds of feet off with nothing around. But how did she get there? How did she get there?
Was that with San? Are you talking about San? Or are you talking about with Fuzz?
Fuzz. You're right.
Yeah,
with Fuzz.
Yeah, she was fighting.
You're right. Fuzz. Sorry. Yeah, it was with her and Fuzz, and it was like I liked watching.
It zoomed out and then it zoomed up. And then for some reason, a mining sled has the capability of going like 1,000 feet in the air and then just stopping.
Yeah, right. And so I thought it looked neat watching her stand on that thing in the middle of like hundreds of feet up. But I was like,
why?
I was like, why? And how did it get there? Where's the ship? Or were they coming from the ship or were they coming from
the underground tunnels.
The underground tunnels.
It's a mining. If you follow it. It does make sense visually. It just sort of doesn't make sense practically. These are apparently mining sleds. This is some sort of mining operation. They're riding the sled at an extremely high rate of speed through the tunnels. Okay, horizontally through tunnels. Then it gets to a point where the tunnel has a 90-degree right angle and then is just open to the sky. It's a tunnel that goes up. So then it just stops and then goes straight up, but it doesn't stop at the ground level like you'd expect it to do to unload its stuff. It just keeps going. Now, okay, you could argue what it's doing is they're fighting and they're overriding it. They're flying this thing higher than it needs to go. And then it has some sort of fail safe that says, hey, I'm going to stop at a certain level because it's unsafe. Okay, I'll buy that. But why would the fail-safe level be 1,000 feet in the air as opposed to like 10 feet off the ground?
Because it looked cool to watch her standing out in the middle of nowhere. That's basically it.
Yeah.
What that brings me to something I was confused about. Like after San steals the God's End and then zaps away. First of all, like I don't know why Sahar was so eager to shoot Georgiou.
Shoot her!
Because he was
shoot her. What am I doing? Shoot her!
Oh, this Star Trek V.
No, that's Muldoon from the beginning of Jurassic Park.
No, that was when Kirk tells Spock to shoot his brother.
But he didn't say shoot her in that context.
He might as well have.
Okay.
But so after San transports away with the God's End, like first of all, why was when Sahar goes, what was that? And she doesn't answer, and he's like, okay, the hard way. It's like, why was his first like instinct to shoot her after she like didn't answer for a sec? She did start running, but why? I don't know. It didn't buy it. Like he goes, what is that? Skip a beat of nothing said. Jump straight to like her running and him shooting. Like, I don't know. That didn't track for me. But anyways, they wake up. She wakes up in a safe house. Is this safe house now in the underground mines on this planet?
And we know that because
what planet is that?
The camera, we don't know, but the camera zooms out and we follow the paths. So that's a foreshadowing that they're going to be doing some adventure through the tunnels later because they show us the tunnels after we...
Is that why they had like pyrotechnic cannons that like shot fire? It was because like they had to, it was mining exhaust or something?
No. I looked, the behind the scenes is that Rammstein was doing a concert there at the same time and they just couldn't afford to take down their equipment.
Hey.
You don't believe me? You don't believe that I read that?
I'm having a hard time believing.
Hey, you can go to Memory Alpha and look into the behind the scenes section.
They had those cannons in the daytime when they were walking out of the mine. They had them at night around the wreckage, which implied that they had something to do with the wreckage catching on fire. But during the day, they were just like firing for no reason. And then they had it at the end on the ship, when the final fight ship.
Final Fight.
The Final Fight ship. And I guess...
Remember that game on Nintendo 64?
Yeah, well, it was an arcade game first,
well,
and then it was
true,
Super Nintendo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Super Nintendo. Yeah.
Right, so in relation to the ship, it meant things were blowing up. But on the planet at night, I think it was supposed to be representative of the wreckage. And then when they were walking through the day, I think it was supposed to represent mining exhaust. I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's like when you drive past, when you're going to New York and you drive through New Jersey and they have all the gas processing plants and they're just shooting flames into the sky. Yeah. Well, because that's how you burn off it's actually to reduce pollution is it burns it off instead of it just floating into the air.
Yeah, but they're not usually like big clouds of fire shooting.
I mean, sometimes there are, but the more to the point is this appears to be a derelict mining operation, but why would it still be having off-gassing go? I don't know. I guess that might be too particular.
And when Dada no, like to totally like
Dada no,
the whole it was a gratuitous sort of like scene where he's like running around on fire. Like I thought it was kind of entertaining, but I was like,
we got to get rid of this character and we're not sure how else to do it.
He's just gonna
burn him to death.
Yeah, I know. I was just like kind of like, whoa.
Have him comically be all like, I'm dying in one of the most upsetting ways possible.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, it was
okay. So plot, we've already talked about some of the plot.
Oh, I wanted to mention one last thing was I thought it was cool.
Jesse, do you think that over under on this being Dan's last thing?
No, in terms of this subject, you're talking about production. I thought it was cool the idea of the garbage scow that like brought garbage by creating a tractor field around it.
I agree.
I thought that was neat.
That was cool.
But what the actual implementation, it kind of looked cartoony when that scow was like all bright orange and stuff. It kind of looked a little cartoonish, like
I would say
when
video game.
Like that one and San's one ship. Like both of them, it was all red, and that one, it was like a little video gamey. But
Very
I thought that was
video
a really cool idea for the garbage.
Yeah, I agree. And
probably didn't make a lot of sense because you probably get garbage in front of you. But I don't know. There's a way to do it. Right?
There's probably a way to implement this wacky ass idea.
Starfish.
There's plenty of ideas that are silly, but if you execute them well, if they're a clever enough idea, you're like, okay, I'm cool with that. And the Garbage Scout kind of falls into that category. And it allowed for some fun lines like Quasi saying, well, like when Garrett is like lock torpedoes or something, he's like, we've got garbage. That's literally all we've got is garbage.
Yeah, they do have that line in there.
Do you have that line? Is that what you're...
we have trash, all right? Just trash.
Just trash.
See,
buff babies.
I was watching that sketch the other day. If this was a regular episode, I would have had half the amount of sounds, and I would have found that twice as fast.
All right, thank you. All right, for the plot.
What was that line in Lord of the Rings when Bilbo goes like, I don't know you half as much as I like to wish that I didn't twice as much or something, right?
Hey, Dan, you got it.
Got it.
You got it. You're spot on.
It's
man.
my 111th birthday.
All right, so for the plot, let's start first of all. The whole movie starts because it's trying to be real edgy and cool. It starts with a quote.
Yeah.
It's a quote from Aeschylus saying, "Fate, who makes the sword, ... does the forging in advance."
Mm-hmm. When I was watching this movie, it just felt like I was watching a shitty movie.
I thought you were going to give us some background on this quote from Aeschylus. What was missing because the ellipses, they've elided some of this quote from Aeschylus because this sort of doesn't make any sense to me. And it looks like they've taken a larger quote. Admittedly, I did not look up what the larger quote was, but they've selected pieces.
That dude has a larger quote. Aeschylus.
Pieces of quotes from Aeschylus. Didn't work for me. And then we go into this opening scene. A lot of people have praised this opening scene. Right? Okay. Dan just looked like, what the fuck? But for real, so many people were like, I wish the whole movie was more similar to this opening segment. I wasn't that impressed with this opening segment.
2 years.
I was more impressed with others.
And everything looks exactly as I remember.
Now here's the deal.
There were 18 of us this time. Called from every corner of the empire.
I know what Dan's
and
trying.
Brought to terror for the contest.
Dan's demonstrating
we were told
something.
That only one of us would survive the years to come.
Dan's demonstrating the old exposition thing because
one child. The purest expression of the terror. Word friend was void in 2 years. And everything looks exactly as I remember. One child. And brought to terror for the contest. And everything looks exactly as I remember. And brought to terror for the contest.
It's creepy.
We were told that only one of us would survive the years to come.
That was absurd. That whole part of her talking was ridiculous. Why was she whispering? Why did she have a British accent or a British sounding accent or a British influence accent or whatever it was?
Yes. So
at what point did it change?
Yeah, these are all good points.
Right.
I think the most important point and my biggest problem with this opening scene is, by the way, my biggest problem with the pilot of Star Trek Discovery is the beginning of that episode is pure exposition and to an obnoxious degree.
Yeah.
And I really like the pilot of Discovery. I think the first few episodes of Discovery are really, really exciting, interesting, very nicely done.
But
except at the beginning, all that exposition where they're just telling you a bunch of shit.
What is a pilot?
Oh my God. Okay. Dan's making a Pulp Fiction show. If you're new to the It's Got Star Trek podcast, Pulp Fiction is one of our touchstones, due largely to our age, race, and gender.
I just thought the way she was talking was so unnecessary. Everything about the way she was talking was really unnecessary.
Yep.
I didn't have as much of a problem with that. And I also didn't find it
was so over the top dramatic.
Yeah, but I also thought that the actor did a good job pronouncing and saying certain things that did to me evoke a Michelle Yeoh, especially how she said child, right? She sort of drew out the word child. That sounded
one child.
It sounded to me like something Michelle Yeoh
That did not
say.
sound like Michelle Yeoh to me.
All right. Well, regardless of that, I think we are in agreement that there was a lot of exposition and the way this was all framed was just odd. And then they introduced this idea of this whole, like, the empire is run by Hunger Games.
Yeah, right.
Which they contradict later by saying, like, no, there's always like coups and shit. That's our understanding from TOS Mirror Mirror, from Deep Space Nine, all the Deep Space Nine Mirror episodes, is that the empire runs in the classic way you imagine these sort of, I know it's not necessarily realistic, it's more fantastical, but the idea being that there's the ruler, and the ruler has a bunch of enemies. Eventually one of them manages to kill the ruler, and then they become the ruler, and then somebody kills them, and that's how it happens. And now they've introduced a sort of a bizarre, impractical, like, why the fuck would you have a Hunger Games to select your emperor? That just doesn't make sense. You'd expect somebody else in power, like you pick some poor person from a dirt farm to be like, yes, we want them to be the emperor, or this other guy, San. We have no idea about his background, by the way.
And we don't know if this is something you volunteer for or they select you for, because, like, why would anyone want to volunteer for something? Maybe they just didn't know until the very end that they were going to have to murder their family.
Is this Hunger Games? Is it Squid Games? What the fuck is it?
I would presumably, like, they would know that you'd have to murder your family at the end, because they probably do the same thing each time. Or maybe they think
that was my question. Yes, no, or is that a surprise? The family seems surprised. The family didn't know about that.
And, like, if they don't do it every time, I would imagine they would do something horrific each time, and I would imagine that they would be aware that they were going to have to do something horrific. So why would you choose to do that? I don't know.
Do you think it just accelerated over time? So, like, in the first Hunger Games for the Empire,
they had to eat a really gross booger.
No, I was going to say you have to go to your family and give them all Christmas presents that they don't want, that they don't want. You know?
Yeah.
Just sort of mildly aggravate them. Right. But then, like, over the generations, it became like you have to fucking poison your little brother.
Yeah, you wouldn't eat the booger until next year. That's when you'd eat the really gross
booger. The booger's sort of in the middle.
Yeah. But remember,
the word friend was forbidden during the contest, but we whispered it to each other when no one could hear.
When no one could hear, we whispered friend to each other. It was forbidden. We weren't allowed to say friend, but we whispered it to each other. It was so cool.
Anyway,
you're so good. So, like, this is the thing that hopefully a full season would. Well, it doesn't matter. Hopefully, I would hope that an entire season would have solved, where there would be a whole sequence showing, like, the relationship building between San and Georgiou, because then we'd give a shit.
You said it, Dan.
Yeah, but they didn't have time to do that, I guess. And I'm assuming that the Geary the Marked or whatever would have been explained, like, because
sounds like a cool character,
because it mentions that he's from 20th century Earth.
Who cares? Which we did forget to talk about him as a character.
Yeah,
but you know why we forgot? It didn't matter.
Yeah,
he was like, oh, he's born on Earth, and then during the eugenics wars, somebody took a shine to him and genetically modified him.
By that, you know what I mean.
And then he did a bunch of awful shit, and then he, like,
sabotage.
Then he hibernated on one of them. Hibernated on one of them Botany Bay type ships.
So yeah,
woke up at some point.
So yeah, so we're told that he's from the 20th century. Now, I'm not sure why they put that in there, because all I can think is, are they trying to, like, make us be able to relate to the character? But that only works when the episode, like in Star Trek 4, when it's taking place in that time, or
if he's not genetically engineered,
or if it's like the Sarah Silverman Voyager episode where they're on, and that's like, it's like, oh look, I'm from this time. But when you simply have a character that states he's from the time that you're from, it doesn't do anything for me. And they didn't bring that up, like, anywhere else in the movie. It's just like, oh, by the way, I'm from Earth. Yeah. I slept for most of it. That makes me be like, well, what? Why were you sleeping for most of it? What happened there? Yeah. Like, why?
In hibernation.
Who is this Geary the Mark? The Geary the Mark, like, brought you in because you were such a badass? Why did you? Part of me thinks that they only brought it up because it was so at the end when Georgiou was like, if you had a second chance, would you have killed Geary? And he's like, yes, I would have. And that's supposed to be some kind of redemption for him. Although I didn't even aware that he was needed redemption, except for that story. That story kind of tells us he needs to be redeemed, but it's so short. It's such a small part of it. It's like, yeah, I joined up and killed some people. And at the end, she's like, are you redeemed now? And he's like, yeah, I would have killed her. I'm redeemed. So I don't know why they kept that in there, because it didn't mean anything.
My minor disagreement
It was some kind of parallel redemption story with her.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense because she genocided multiple planets, and he, I guess, was the henchman for maybe an equally awful person, but still, he's not the person. But where my minor disagreement with you is, I think if you did have a character from 20th or 21st century, the audience could identify with them.
Yes, they could.
But that goes away when you then genetically engineer that person. So now whatever way we could have identified with him goes out the window, because now I can't identify with him because I'm not a super strong person who worked for a genetic, for a monster. if he was a character who's like, if he was a cop from Chicago and through some time travel shenanigans ended up here and he's like, that's my deal, I'm a cop from Chicago, then I could identify with that guy.
Yeah, but even in this movie, the way they presented him even if he wasn't an augment, it was still pointless to have him in there because there was nothing that they did that made him, even if he wasn't an augment, there was nothing relatable. Just saying he's from the 20th century isn't supposed to make me be like, oh, that's my friend, that's my guy.
I get that, but
that's what I don't.
We're all these suggestions we're making is on the presumption that they wrote a better movie.
Yeah,
we have that's built into any of our comments.
There had to have been something about the 20th century that played into the movie somehow. At least his mannerisms. I don't know something. But there was nothing. It was pointless.
You know what's not pointless?
Is this a thing about taking a break or something like that?
Yes, because we do have to take a break. We're a couple minutes over, so let's take a break and let's see. We can probably finish up with one more segment on our extended discussion of Star Trek Section 31. Be right back.
May I escort you to your quarters? Come.
All right, we have returned.
It took you long enough to find me.
So we're talking about, you were mentioning about how, Patrick was mentioning about how Georgiou, was like, this murdered her family and everything. As we know, she murdered her family. Mm-hmm. Now, when you think about your standard anti-hero, it's just some kind of person with loose, maybe perceived to have loose morals, or maybe they were a bank robber or something like that. But having her murder her whole family kind of pushed it too far in the other direction. Now, maybe a whole season could have helped with that redemption story, but I don't think the anti-hero can be done with someone who's a genocidal maniac who murders their family.
This has come up a lot on Discovery. People were like, why are we trying to help this character who's killed all these people?
Right. So now on the one thing I will say, they do talk about how San didn't murder his family and they ended up burning his village and killing them anyway. Yeah. So maybe she knew oh, well, they're going to die anyway. But still, man, you still fight for your family. And okay, on top of that, she murdered a whole, buttload of people. It's hard to come back from something like that. And I don't know, I don't know why we're supposed to care about her character. I don't know why we're supposed to be rooting for her. I don't know why because we have no reason to care about her character at all. Characters don't have to be likable. Sometimes people complain when characters aren't likable enough. They don't all have to be. They just have to be the character they're supposed to be. And she is supposed to be someone we're rooting for, who is in this. For some reason, she's in this. For some reason, Sahar thinks that she's in this to redeem herself, although she's shown nothing to him to indicate that she wants to be redeemed. The only thing she showed us is a few less than snarky looks to make us be like, oh, we can tell she's trying to be better, I guess, but it's very vague. But to him, she has shown nothing. So why would he even think that? But that's how she's supposed to come across to us, as someone who's not only, I've been using the word redemption a lot, but somebody who we're rooting for. And there's no reason to root for her in this movie. She's done nothing. Even solving the problem, winning the movie, which by the way, at the end they do say, Garrett goes we won. She actually says we won. Yeah. So they won the movie. Even you could argue that she didn't do that to redeem herself. She just did it because, I don't know, because as the way Sahar linked her in, hooked her in, he was like, you miss all the fun that you had out here, right? So that's what how Sahar brings her in, is by telling her you miss the action, basically. And so her doing all this stuff and getting the God's End and doing all this shit, you could simply say that she was just in it for the action.
Did you say God's End or God's End?
Right, yeah, there was that whole fucking thing, which
I laughed at that.
It was a little out of place, but it was kind of okay.
Well, to your point, Dan, one of the problems...
God's End or God's End? Is it God's End or God's End? God's End? God's End. God's End? Is it? God's End. God's End or God's End? God's End? Is it? God's End. God's End or God's End? God's End or God's End? God's End? Right. God's End.
One of the problems with this movie is, and we've discussed this is not the first time this has happened on Star Trek. I think this may be one of the more egregious examples of it, though, is there are so many potential avenues for interesting moral and or philosophical questions to be explored through this story. And they simply do not. Mm-hmm. Because what you've brought up, Dan, is what an interesting story it is to examine and explore the thresholds, the constraints on redemption. How awful can a person be and still find some form of redemption? And there's so much to discuss there because it depends on personal moral philosophy. It depends on, there's all these things that they could have characters talking about and ruminating on and give the movie a purpose. And it's right there. The purpose is, this is an awful person. We've at the beginning, she's well, whether she's an awful person, let's set that aside. She's a genocidal maniac. She's murdered entire planets. We know that from the previous show that she was on, and they reference that here. She murders her family. We see her kill her brother. Yeah, she feels bad about it, but she still does it. Okay, so now let's wrestle with that morality and see what kind of things can a person do, or is it even possible for a person to come back from that? And that exact question that you asked, they don't do that. There's at no point where they don't even touch, they don't even hint at it.
No, and I think there is a way they could have done
Absolutely there is.
Like there's something they could have done that
pieces are there.
That could have been like really emotional and heart-wreshing or something, like or just sort of made me think, or I don't know, some kind of, she made no sacrifices as a character. Like there was nothing in there. Like she came to no realization. We didn't see her come to realizations. She
didn't even lose her nightclub.
Yeah, she didn't. Yeah, she got her nightclub back at the very end. And they even say, like, was it Quasi at the end who says like something about genocide? What did Quasi say at the end? Something about he called her a killer at the end. I don't know. There's a line he says at the end, but
is it at the end that he said it?
Yeah, it's at the end. It's at the end. Quasi.
Sorry.
Asshole.
Oh, do you remember when she says asshole? I like that. Did you get that line of her?
Asshole.
Yeah. That's great. Michelle Yeoh is great. Again, there's so much talent here, and she really is good at this character. I heard a couple people comment that one thing they didn't like about this movie, among others, is that they sort of defanged Georgiou in a few ways. And I think that's true. On the one hand, she's this awful, irredeemable person. On the other hand, she's not quite as entertaining as she was on Discovery, when she's not as bombastic.
No. The line I was looking for is the fact we're talking about her being, a killer. Quasi says, "Oh, we get it. You're a terrifying soulless murderer boy, I'm having trouble. Let's start take two on that." Quasi says, "Oh, we get it. You're a terrifying, soulless murderer who we can never truly trust." I love that for us. Now, I know it's a joke, but at the same time, it's like, that's as much as we know about her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's like kind of like you're making fun of the fact that you never really resolved that or something, because like, I don't know. It's a weird joke. It seemed to be like winking at us or something. I don't know, but like
it's bizarre. It falls into that category of all those sort of contemporary phrases. You highlighted a few of them already that pull you out of the story a little bit, and you don't have to avoid that stuff necessarily. I think some people take that criticism too far because TV shows are made in the time, even if it's a sci-fi. You're going to use language that's familiar, but some of it just goes really far, like the examples that you played previously.
I mean, and it wasn't even just the wording that got me. It's just like the fact that, yes, she's a soulless murderer, and he's joking about the fact that she's a soulless murderer, and he's not being ironic. Like, we're supposed to think it's ironic.
You killed billions of people.
Right. That's funny when it's like ironic or whatever, but it's not. He's like, that is the case with her, and they never resolved the fact that, yeah, she did it. Like, I don't know. It was confusing to me.
It's a kind of story that maybe would even work better in a different form of sci-fi. Maybe Star Trek's not the right venue for it. Maybe something that can play a little bit more around with like sort of the Christian philosophy of anybody is redeemable, and testing that against somebody as bad as Georgiou. But yeah, again, it didn't even touch on that.
So here's some of the, although if you want to talk about some of the language, there's this one. There's the Cameloid, a green-blooded shapeshifter trying to muster sexy time with a Deltan, a walking honey trap 31's obviously using as a distraction, except Cameloids are the only species in the galaxy immune to Deltan's sexy time charm.
Yeah.
Felt like they got this dialogue from like a Reddit post. Like they're talking about sexy time.
Or AI that got it from a Reddit post.
How about this? You learned tyranny somewhere and you learned hard. I thought that was a pretty silly line.
Yeah, there's a lot of them in here.
You learned tyranny somewhere and you learned hard.
And then there was like, okay, so you're into Mecha Boom Boom. Lots of humans are. No shame.
Mecha boom boom.
And then this is a bizarre line. You're actually a chaos goblin, aren't you?
You're actually a chaos goblin, aren't you?
There's something about me that likes this line.
I
but
did like that line.
I like it, but it's also very confusing.
I think you and I and Jesse, tell us if you're in the same boat. Goblin is one of those fun words. Anytime it gets used, you're happy that it's used, both because of what the entire word means, but it's got all the comic. It's a goblin.
But it doesn't
goblin.
It doesn't fit with. I don't expect her to be saying that. I don't know.
Agree with you there.
Then this one. This is. It goes. This is chaos, Garrett. You know you love it. Maybe let it in. Make out with it a little. It's why Starfleet put you here. Like. Make out with it a little, I just thought this it's trying too hard to be like cute and clever. I don't know. This whole line, then there was some weird, like this one.
You look like a Swiss Army knife.
Like, why are they talking about Swiss Army knives? I don't know. It just, I guess they're that popular that they live on. Oh, is this that popular that it lives on too?
Cool. Does it come with fries?
Is that you want fries with that saying from Earth? Is that something that's spread throughout the galaxy in the future? Is that a common phrase? Or is it their universal translator saying the equivalent of that and translating it into English? Like, do people in the future walk around saying you want fries with that? You know?
There's a lot of questions here.
Yeah, I know. I have a lot of questions as well. I think a lot of them we've already covered, not necessarily answered, because there's not necessarily a lot of answers to these questions. One question I did have, though, is what did Georgiou say to Dada No to get him to talk?
Yeah, right.
That gag, right?
Yeah, that whole trick is like, oh, it must have been bad.
Do you have a guess?
I have no guess.
Something with testicles.
Yeah, probably testicles.
You think she threatened his testicles?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Both of you are like, if somebody threatened my testicles, I'd talk right away.
Yep.
Why did young Georgiou set up San when she said their special line? She goes, "We are two," and then he goes, "But one," and then she's like, "Psych!" He goes, "Not anymore," and then she burns his face.
I guess she's a cruel person.
Like, I thought she was but she was supposed to. She looked like she was crying. She was sad, but then she was making this fucking clever like fucking quip or. Yeah. Whatever you want to call it. Like, she seemed stressed out, but her language wouldn't indicate that. Why did she do that weird flourish where she did that butt spin over the table towards Alok when she goes, "Starfleet, where fun goes to die"? You remember that? She spun over the table. It was like kind of excessive.
We've already spoken about a few unnecessary flourishes, and I think that falls into that category.
Wasn't entirely sure why Georgiou got convinced to help Sahar and company. The whole time she was being really coy and snarky, and then he basically said, like, well, you want to be where the action is. And she's like, okay. I mean, I guess you could say, like, she was playing with him the whole time, but it was just,
I don't know. It's very cliched, and I think ultimately what we can get down to is this movie has a ton of cliches.
Yeah.
And cliches are not necessarily a bad thing if they're being used as a shortcut. It happens a lot on TV in particular because you have less time, so you want to
fewer time. You have fewer time.
You have less time, so you want to get to the point quicker, and by using cliches, you get the audience there quicker. Not necessary here. They had more time. They just didn't use it efficiently, I think. And some of the cliches were so stupid.
Yeah.
They were so cliched that you're just like, this is disappointing.
Why do they have 24 hours to complete the mission? Isn't the mission determined by like when the ion storm comes back into place? I guess they didn't know about the ion storm at that time, but why was it 24 hours at that point? Why was that 24 hours? It seems arbitrary. Yeah, why did Fuzz have what was supposed to be what he was trying to make as an Irish accent, but then his like wife had some kind of Southern accent? Mm-hmm. Was that just their universal translator settings? Like I don't know like what that was.
And the Southern accent was better performed than the Irish accent, but it's
when we find him, I have questions.
But it still came off as sort of a caricature and somewhat offensive in context.
Yeah. Okay, so why was Section 31 going to meet up with Georgiou only to knock her out and shapeshift into her? Wasn't their mission to, quote, go, this is from Jamie Lee Curtis, the mission is to go in, make contact with Georgiou to help identify and neutralize the threat. It seems like they just wanted to take her place so they could meet with Dada No instead of her, which is also a decent plan, but it's not the same thing. It's like they implied that they were going to meet with her and with her they were going to somehow find and locate the terrorist threat, but all they were going to originally do was knock her out and take her place and talk to Dada No. So I don't know. I thought that was it was just like, I mean, I guess you could wrap your brain around why it was, but it felt like it was slightly confusing.
The other thing also is that to be fair to the producers and the writers, the timeline for Georgiou is a bit complicated. It's probably worth reminding us what that is at the moment. So Mirror Georgiou in Discovery in season 2, or season 1 and 2, ultimately she gets pulled over into the Prime universe. And so for a while, so she's no longer the Emperor, right? She was the Emperor, no longer the Emperor because I don't want to spoil, but because of events that happen in Discovery, they're actually pretty interesting. She comes over to the Prime universe and finds herself useful to Section 31. And then there's a whole storyline with Section 31. And so she's doing that. But then in Discovery, again, trying to minimize spoilers, at the end of the second season, something happens that results in her no longer being in that time frame and no longer being with Section 31. So that's what they're referencing in this movie at the beginning, where they're saying, like, she disappeared. We lost track of her. She disappeared.
Right.
That was in the 22nd century.
Right.
Like in 2257 or something.
But
then she reappears as a nightclub owner.
Right.
And I guess that's where they're like, okay, now she's a nightclub owner. Now we want to, I guess they've been watching her for a while.
Yeah, but their mission was to make contact with her and to help identify and neutralize the threat, which implies they're going to go in, meet up with her, have a conference, work out, like, okay, let's go find this terrorist threat together. But instead what they do is they just knock her the fuck out.
All of that. I'm just saying, I'm explaining the timeline to show that the timeline itself is confusing, because what are we supposed to understand that Section 31 at some point figured out one of their old agents from a fucking 100 years before, or maybe like 70, 80 years before, disappeared, suddenly reappeared. That's interesting. So just reappeared out of the blue and is now a nightclub owner. How long have they been monitoring her? How long has she been back there? Right? We know that she was sent by the old timekeeper, the old orb of time. Yeah, the other one, the little, what's his name? Guardian at the Edge of Forever or whatever. We know she was sent back to some, we didn't know at the time where she was going, but this is where she ended up. Okay. But these are all things that we don't have enough details about. These are the things people were kind of interested in. How did she end up at this time?
Let's cut the shit.
How did she end up as a nightclub owner? Why does she have a nightclub that can warp around? Why do hundreds, maybe thousands of the ships of the nightclub denizens also warp with her on this mission? What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
It was a cool shot, but like,
why does she need to take the nightclub? Why can't she take a ship and keep she's got a guy. She got Virgil to help her run the nightclub.
Yeah.
Virgil can take care of it. He's all campy and fun. Like, he can handle it. He can handle
I'm afraid the bride molted just as things were coming to a climax.
Here's another silly line, I thought.
He seems entirely sober, but quite intoxicated.
Like, I get it. Like, I get the joke.
It's a Sex in the City joke.
It's like too clever. It's once again too clever. It's like, who talks like that? I don't know.
I mean, I'd hang out with Virgil.
A lot of this schmovie was like...
Schmovie?
A lot of this movie...
No, this is a schmovie. You've coined the perfect term. This is not a movie. It's a schmovie.
Star Trek schmovie.
A lot of this movie is just people don't really talk like that. I mean, I guess, whatever. You can say that about a lot of movies.
No, you're right. You're right. It's affected.
Yeah.
It's cliched and affected.
So why'd they show us footage of what Section 31 would have done?
Because they're lame.
Like, when they didn't do that, did they make this whole heist thing and then realize, oh wait, Georgiou's not involved. We need to get Georgiou involved. And then they're like, oh wait, now Georgiou's involved, but we still have to show this clip either because A, we need to validate the existence of these characters, or B, we just thought it was that cool and we need the footage. Like, they didn't, I don't know why they...
I'm more and more convinced by your theory that this was put together, at least in some sense, by AI, because there's certain things that just do not hang together in a way that, and the people who are working on this are not untalented people. They are professional writers.
Mm-hmm.
Time constraints and all sorts of other things can cause problems. Tarek mentioned in his voicemail that maybe there was studio interference. Okay.
Yeah.
More so in this than in the other stuff. I don't know. Whatever. I think one of the core problems of this movie, it's called Star Trek Section 31. And we've mentioned Section 31 a bunch. This movie is not really about Section 31. You could say this is like one Section 31 team of clowns doesn't really match other Section 31 stuff. Even the Discovery version of Section 31, which I didn't like because it was too overt compared to the Deep Space Nine Section 31, it was still very professional, right? That was one of the key things, is like, these are cold, calculating professional realpolitik type spies, right? The kind of thing you imagine in the 70s and 80s in the US and Russia, these types of behind the scenes doing schemy, shady stuff for the purposes of freedom or whatever, at least from their perspective. These guys are a bunch of crazy ass, clowny ass jabronis.
Clowny ass.
And it really, and even beyond that, other than the fact that they were given this message supposedly by Section 31, we're not learning anything about Section 31. There's no examination of the moral conundrum of having an obsidian order, a Tal Shiar-like system or group within the Federation doing this crazy shit. None of that is there. It's just, we're going to call the movie Section 31, and there's going to be like a heist that involves a small group of Section 31 people, but it's not really a Section 31 movie. It's a movie about Empress Georgiou and an old acquaintance of hers.
So they should have cut one thing out. They should have either cut out the Georgiou San story, or they should have cut the Section 31 stuff out.
Yeah. Or you know what?
Or
Another
trimmed
option is they could have done a completely different story.
Yeah.
No, let's cut the shit.
Now, here's the question for you is like I mentioned, this was intended originally to be a TV series, presumably at least one season they would have gone for, and they cut it down to a movie. If they did a full season, do you think they would have gone the Discovery Picard model, which is this basically this story drawn out over the season, video game style, where they have all these MacGuffins where kind of like Discovery season 4 or 5, where they're kind of each episode is like going to the next level, but with a lot of character development and stuff along the way.
Everything was predicated on like we found the next clue.
Exactly.
That was like the whole setup to every story.
So that's one way they could have done it, or they could have done it more Strange New Worlds, Lower Deck style, where there might be an overarching sort of season-long arc, but each story was a constrained, like a separate Section 31 mission with this kind of this other stuff going on in the background.
I think there was a lot of potential, like what I mentioned earlier, how even though the whole Hunger Games Emperor thing was weird, they could have made that its own part of the story.
Yeah.
And then they could have moved on to the next part, which was a bunch of Section 31 shit. And then they could have shown them meeting up or something. And then they could have gone some other episodes about her experience with San, like over time, showing like what's going wrong. Like they had a potential to tackle like this greater story in different sort of perspectives and timelines, not necessarily like clue to clue to clue, like over time, different time periods, and have it sort of interconnect in a way that I think would be different than even Strange New Worlds. I think it could have been its own thing.
Well, I'm wondering if in the compression, the solution to the compression was to turn it into this wacky Ocean's 11 Suicide Squad style campy movie. Or if that was the plan the whole time. If it was the plan the whole time, I would not be enjoying that show probably. Yeah. Now, if they had done like here every week, Jamie Lee Curtis is going to give us a new Section 31 mission, and part of the fun, fun is like, are we comfortable with this? Is this a shady mission? Is it morally justified or not? How do they work through that? How do they stay Starfleet?
But it seems obvious that I can't say this for sure, but it seems apparent that they wanted to have this San Georgiou story, and if they're doing what you talked about, they wouldn't need that San Georgiou thing so much.
Or
they could make it its own. That would be its own thing without the San Georgiou.
Or it could be the background, and then like each episode, Rachel Garrett is like, hey, Rachel Garrett's the one saying like, I don't know. It seems like we shouldn't be tying this guy to a chair and punching him in the face.
Why was Garrett like so prude that she couldn't even like talk about like Sahar? I assume Sahar was supposed to have sex with Georgiou, right? Yeah. And she was like connect with. He's like, you can say it like. She couldn't even. I mean, I know that's her character, but it's once again, it's too much, man. It's too much. It's too much, man. This whole movie's too much.
It is. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis's Control it was cute.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cute cameo. I liked seeing her, but you know.
So right. So here's this is back to when the ship blew up, right? And they So when the ship blew up,
did we ever hear the name of the ship? I don't think we did.
Georgiou assumed that whoever stole the godsend had a partner, and that the partner was someone currently among them. Why did she assume that? The ship crashes, and then she's like, whoever stole this must have had a partner, and they're among us now. She's jumping to the conclusion that someone sabotaged the ship, and without exactly saying that first. She said this other stuff first. But why did she assume it was sabotage? It was a possibility. It's not a guarantee, you know? So, like, I don't know, like, how she, like, immediately knew that there was a mole in the group. Also, in the line was funny, she goes... Garrett goes, what happened? And Sahar goes, sabotage. And she goes, And Zeph goes, what? And then Georgiou goes, whoever stole the godsend had a partner. It was someone here. And then Alok, Sahar, sorry, I keep getting their names back and forth, as if we didn't already understand what Georgiou said, follows it up with, which means one of us is a mole.
Yeah, it's the overuse of exposition.
Yeah,
not trusting the audience.
Right.
And by the way, using, again, as I said, the cliches. The mole it's a big cliche. I'm not saying you can't ever have a mole, but I don't know. The mole in the heist movie, it's so fucking standard. And
Sabotage.
Ultimately, for me, I think part of the disappointment in this film, from my perspective, is it's kind of boring.
Which means one of us is a mole.
It was kind of a boring story. And when you have Michelle Yeoh and you have all these other really great actors and Sam Richardson and stuff, and you just I was finding it really hard, especially on the second watch through. I was having so much difficulty trying to engage with it because I really do like paying attention. And, this happens sometimes. Sometimes you get a boring Star Trek
Patrick likes
story.
to pay attention. That's one of his hobbies, is paying attention.
I do. I'm like a big fan of paying attention.
It's actually insulting to call it a hobby because that kind of implies that it's not like the main focal point of your life.
I get off on paying attention.
Yeah.
But when you start getting distracted, you're just like looking at your phone. You're like, oh, I forgot. I can't look at my phone. I have to like actually watch this shit again.
You think I'm a monster who feels enough to be controlled, but still do the real dirty work. 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 Do the real dirty work.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
Do the real dirty
Dan,
work.
quick question. How many questions from your list of 43 questions, how many do we have left?
Only like a handful, because I was able to be smooth and sneak
incorporate
them.
That's
It just
why
kind
we
of
hired
happened.
you. That's why Jesse and I, we were doing this whole podcast thing, and we're like, who can we hire?
Yeah.
Who can we hire who can smoothly insert his commentary throughout the course of the podcast? And
The godsend is me.
That was Dan.
Yeah.
All right, Dan. Let's. Then we'll keep pushing through, and we'll just. We won't do another break. We'll just start to finish up here. So, I don't have much else to say. Other than,
forbid you to die.
I think it's probably like the as much critique as we've leveled, and a lot of other people. And I think it is worth briefly talking about sort of the reaction to this from the fans and the public. I will say I wasn't super satisfied with this movie. I thought it was sort of boring. Thought it was cliched.
Yeah.
It was disappointing because of the people involved and also some of the ideas that it introduced.
They were
that
like
it just
literally
didn't follow.
like a few small parts that I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
But
there was a couple of those things.
But like not much
The
else.
biggest sin of this movie is that it was kind of boring. But that all being said, I am happy they made this movie. I'm happy they're trying new formats. The TV movie format. I want to see more Star Trek, and I want them to try new things with the understanding that some of those new things are not going to be for me. Some of these new things are not going to be for anybody.
Yeah.
But trying stuff is cool as long as they don't totally fuck it up and then don't get to try new stuff.
I agree it was boring, but the biggest issue for me, it was too over the top with like the cliches and like the dramatic, clever lines.
But that's what made it boring for me.
Okay, so that's interesting.
We're saying the same thing.
Because when I think about let's say Phantom Menace versus Attack of the Clones.
Yes.
The first and second. I think Attack of the Clones is a better movie, but that's only because the Attack of the Clones is kind of boring and just kind of like, I mean, there's some cool things.
You mean Phantom Menace is boring?
No, Phantom Menace is straight up bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, like Phantom Menace, it is boring, but it's also bad.
I got you.
Attack of the Clones is the second one is not necessarily bad. It's just kind of nondescript. There's some cool things. There's some cool things to look at here and there, but as a result, because I enjoy Attack of the Clones more, even though it's boring, like than Phantom Menace, which is just bad. So what I'm trying to say is that like boring sucks, but I'm more offended by like just the fucking ridiculous like over the topness of like the cliches and that shit, which you're saying that's what you define as boring. So it's just
it's just in my case, it's because there's nothing engaging me. Everything I'm seeing on screen is expected. It's not surprising. It's not interesting. They're not asking any questions.
Right. So for me, it was more a reaction. I was more just like,
it was a color by numbers plot. And that's why it was boring. I've seen it a million times.
I would like mentally wince at a lot of the stuff. To me, for me, that's not boredom. For me, that's just like, oh my God. Like it was like,
I get you.
Anyways, I want to play these two lines.
Okay.
This one's silly.
I forbid you to die!
I guess it's a really ridiculous line. I guess that could have been done in a dramatic way, but it didn't come off that way to me.
Agreed. You can, in principle, you can see that written down and being like, that is the impotence of the most powerful person in the quadrant, the impotence because the person they care for, the person they love is dying, and they're forbidding them to die. They are the emperor, they're the most powerful person, and it's useless. But yes, in the context, it's silly.
It's like the numbers say it should work, but it doesn't. Yeah. And then this one is also kind of, this one.
I'm the only one I could never defeat.
I thought that was a little silly. Typically when you hear that line, it is a cliche in and of itself, but it's more like someone says to someone else, they're like, you are your own worst enemy. That's what you typically hear. Yeah. And I'm not, I know I complain about things being like too stereotypical. This kind of reversed it. It said, I'm my own worst enemy. It's like, I'm the only one I couldn't defeat. And the line didn't work for me. It felt silly. It felt like something you wouldn't say.
I also found it confusing.
It was confusing.
I actually rewound that. Even on my first watch, I rewound it a couple times because I was like, I'm unclear what's going on. And then I was like, okay, I think I get what they're saying, but it's still it's just
like, it's just something that somebody wouldn't just like, it's like, okay, you've realized this for all this time. And I don't know. It's just silly. Okay, so let's see if I can zoom through these things. Why do we need to know that the cameloids are green-blooded? It just seems like it's a Star Trek-y thing to do. Like that didn't come into play anywhere. I mean, Spock's blood came into play, like for
it might just be a reference. I can't remember, but it might be a reference to Star Trek 6 or one of the other references to cameloids when they get blown up.
Remember, like I said, some of these are legitimate questions that I'm actually wanting to know the answer to.
Well, Jesse and I are here standing ready to answer what we can answer.
Why did Carrot's handcuffs just fall off when everyone left her behind to go have the fight on the speed maintenance platform or the mining platform?
I think she did that magician's trick.
Yeah. I know it was
she did that where she's all like, ha ha.
See, and that
was,
right, and that to me, it was this. I think
if it was a series in the background, there would have been a whole episode where flashbacks to like when she was in Starfleet Academy. She didn't want to go. She wanted to be a street magician, but her parents made her go to Starfleet Academy.
That could have been a whole episode. Those 3 seconds could have been a whole flashback to when she learned how to get out of. Yeah, that'd be kind of like that Lower Deck. Not really, but that Lower Decks episode where there's like 30 seconds passes in their time, and it's not the same thing. But you know, one thing, it's fucking with time. But anyway, backstory explaining 3 seconds. Anyway,
that's a good episode of Lower Decks from the 5th season.
Yeah. I think that almost seemed like that had to have been like a wink. That had to have been like, we don't know how to get her out, so we're just going to be in your face silly about it and be like, isn't this a funny joke? I can't imagine that they didn't realize that was ridiculous. They had to have done that on purpose.
There was another wink. They did the whole iocane maneuver. You know, the Princess Bride taking poison and building up an immunity.
He was coughing blood and shit.
Because that's not like a real thing. That's like a Princess Bride thing.
Yeah, right.
And so they've got San is doing the Princess Bride, the Wesley thing.
It's like somebody writing a cop show who has never like stepped foot in
the AI. It's the AI who's like, this approximates a love story.
See, right. It's not speaking from personal experience. Like I said, it's like someone writing a cop story if they've never set foot in a police office or whatever. Like
no, that's what it's called. It's called a police office.
A police
for all our folks
police
that live outside of the United States or the English-speaking world.
Oh my God, it's station.
It's common for us to refer to this in the Mid-Atlantic in the Washington D.C. area as a police.
Oh, this human is full of words.
Police office. Sorry, I'm just having a little fun. It's late. We've been talking for
If it were me, I would have murdered all of you already. No, let's cut the shit.
Listen carefully, Junkyard.
Did you time that light way on purpose? That was good.
I'm good.
You are very good.
Police station. Okay, so but basically it was all but like that's AI just grabbing from other shit other people wrote. Nothing seems like it was from
quite seriously. I'm more and more convinced of this.
Nothing seems like it was written from any sort of personal sort of experience or knowledge. It was just grabbed from other shit. Okay, getting close there. Okay, well, we can talk about the Droom bomb, the Droom not bomb toy that was silly and creepy. That whole thing. It
was amusing, but
I didn't even think it was that amusing. It was just ridiculous.
No, you know what it is? It's kind of like you were saying before. It's like sort of like by the numbers in principle, get it. But I've seen it before. I've seen the idea of using a cute children's toy. That then blows up.
But it didn't. Once again, it just didn't work. It felt like too in your face about it.
Partly didn't work because we've seen it before. That's a kind of joke that you can only one show can do that. Only one show or movie can really do that. Because then after that, it's like, well,
this
I can't even remember where I've seen it before because we've seen it a bunch of times.
A bunch of times. How hungry were you to see it a bunch of times?
My belly's so empty. I want to put food in it.
This series of lines from Garrett is just like, I don't know.
The toy looks like it came from a Droom planet. Oh, we do not let Droom tech into the Federation because they use Turinium as a power source.
Oh, Turinium!
You better hope that this ship's hull is reinforced with Tomahite.
With Tomahite?
Tomahite. So yeah, the toy is Droom, which we learned about just now. Droom technology runs off of Turinium, which we learn about just now, and you better hope the ship is equipped with Tomahite, which we learn about just now.
Techno babble.
Yeah, and I guess that the reason they talked about the Tomahite was so they were able to protect the ship. The Tomahite, I guess, protects the ship if the Droom thing blows up, or does the Tomahite keep the mysterious liquid she poured on? Because she had some mysterious liquid she poured on it to make it bubble up.
I don't know.
Like, I think the Tomahite was supposed to protect the ship from the toy exploding, but then the toy exploded far away anyway. I don't know why I know why they introduced the Turinium, but I don't know why they introduced the Tomahite, because that didn't even come into play at all. Like I thought it was some kind of shield, but like the ship blew out in space anyway. I think what the Tomahite does is what I first said, is that bottle of nondescript liquid that she poured on it, which we don't know what it was. Was that Turinium? No. I don't think that was Turinium. I think it was
just bleach.
It was just bleach she was pouring on the Turinium.
Some sort of like.
And I think that the Tomahite protects the ship from the fumes given off by the bleach when it combines with Turinium. That's what I'm going to say.
Of all these characters, the one I would actually most be excited to see Jesse's waking up and starting to cough. The one I'd be most excited to see would be a show with Rachel Garrett. I don't really need, like, the rest of the characters. I didn't even dislike. I liked Quasi. I mean, some of these other ones, okay, whatever. Rachel Garrett, I would love to see her on a Federation ship early in her career, having adventures in this time period, maybe dealing with the first Cardassian Wars. I mean, I don't know. That would be cool. We're not going to see that. It makes me sad because I really like the performance of the actor. I like the character. It's disappointing that we have this bad reaction. I mean, it's a bad movie. I think it's fair. Most of us agree it's not that great a movie.
Shall we do something fun together?
And one of the things that's disappointing about it is we probably won't see more of these characters, even the good bits. And I think Rachel Garrett, although she didn't have a lot to do in this movie, and maybe because she didn't have a lot to do in this movie, has the most promise for actually doing something interesting with it.
We're all gonna die! We're all gonna die!
See, I think one of the problems there is why would it say that? Is maybe Droom has sort of like, that's how Droom
There's a sardonic sense of humor in
yeah,
that
that's how they
embrace.
talk. That's how they talk to their kids in Droom World. Is that's what they
Droom World.
In Droom World, that's funny to them to talk to kids. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. Okay. Yes. So why were some of Fuzz's kids named after illnesses?
Don't know.
That was weird. He was talking about tonsil something. He was talking about like something Uenza, or I don't know.
Just nonsense.
It was nonsense. Why did Georgiou disable the failsafes on the Godsend, but then send it off for someone else to destroy? Presumably she disabled the failsafes because Presumably she disabled the failsafes because she only trusted herself. But then she sent it off to get destroyed, which means she put that in somebody else's trust, which doesn't follow up.
The second part, you're 100% correct. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think she said she disabled the fail-safes. My understanding was she built it without fail-safes in the first place. Like, it didn't have fail-safes. There was no option to have fail-safes. But that doesn't negate the fact that, yeah, you have a quadrant-destroying device, and then you hand it off to somebody else.
This is the line. They say, can we disable it remotely? She says, there is no fail-safe. I wouldn't allow it.
Exactly. I wouldn't allow it in the design.
Which means she specifically didn't want it because she didn't trust anyone.
Exactly. That's the nuance point I made. She didn't have a fail-safe that she disabled. She built a weapon that had no fail-safes. And I'm agreeing with you. It's absurd to say that person would then hand it to some random lackey to destroy.
Right. Okay. Look, You're right. I that's what
Goddamn right I'm
but
right.
that doesn't change a damn thing about my point.
And it doesn't change a damn thing about my point, which is that I agree 100% with you.
Okay.
I was just making that point because, again, Dan, we get emails. People send us emails if we make a mistake.
I'm not sure about
We have not made a single mistake this entire episode.
Okay, that's why
We're 2 hours and 12 minutes in, and we haven't made a single mistake, and we cannot permit it because I don't want to get those fucking emails.
I don't think I've ever seen these emails.
That's because I catch them before you do. I withhold them from you because I know how upset you'd get. In episode 174, Dan said blue, 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 but actually blee, blee, blee.
So I think that's
Is that it?
I think now that I look at it, that's about it.
That's about it.
I mean, I wrote down a bunch of like silly quotes, but we don't have to go through. I think we really went through most of those.
I think we played through a lot of them.
Yeah.
Look, this is
there's
not a worthless. I'll say it's not a worthless movie. It's kind of boring.
This does not work for radio, but I'm just going to tell you that I did it.
Okay.
There was that one part where they were looking at the star map real quick, and then they showed some kind of hierarchy for the Minos Corva hierarchy, and they only showed it for a split second. I wrote down all the things from the star map and the entire hierarchy of the Minos Corva. At the top is the Supreme Chancellor of the High Council. On the lowermost right is the local system prosecutors. On the second to lowest, all the way left, is the Constitutional Parliament. Things like that, you know. There is among the things, there's the Argus Array on the star map. There's Talos, the Aldebaran. There is Toroth. Someplace that's spelled polite, which is weird.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one. Most of these other things we've heard about before in Star Trek.
Yeah, there's Beta Zeta, otherwise known as Beta Z. There's Orion's planet, stuff like that. You know, stuff like that.
There's a bunch of stuff like that.
Oh, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. One last thing: the final fight scene. They reused the same footage twice in that final fight scene between San and Georgiou.
I did not catch that.
Yes, I did catch that. And in fact, normally when I'd say something like this, historically, I'd be like, you know, you should go back and catch it. It's really neat. It's at 1 hour, 15 minutes and 15 seconds. The other's at 1 hour, 16 minutes and 20 seconds. But nobody wants to listen to a podcast and get homework, you know? So what I did is I extracted those clips and I put them next to each other and I created a little video of it showing exactly that footage, that repeated footage in that same fight scene, and I uploaded it to YouTube. I think we should post a link that people can click on and they can see that exact fight scene, that fight scene and those two, the reused footage side by side.
All right. So, check our show notes, check the show description.
I kind of gave them a little bit of homework, but the homework's much more doable than having to like manually go. I did all the work for you. You just got to go to YouTube.
And Dan will have done all the work for you. All you got to do is click on it, watch the little video.
Watch the little video.
Now, did you upload it to your YouTube page, or do you want us to upload it to the It's Got Star Trek YouTube page?
I uploaded it to mine.
So if you go to Dan's YouTube page, you can also, he's got some videos of his cats.
Well, it's actually on the link is unlisted currently, so I should probably list it.
No, you don't need to list it if you want to keep it. No, you should list it.
Yeah,
you should probably list it.
I should probably list it.
Right.
But if we have the link, you don't need to list it. But you might as well. Why not at that point? You know?
Speaking of links, I'm gonna assume we're done here.
They're running out of time.
So speaking of links, we encourage you.
Cut the shit.
We encourage you to visit some of our links. We've got so many links, goddammit. We've got
like golf links.
Yes, like we've got www.itsgotstartrek.com.
Why to me?
That's a link for you right there. We've got www.itsgotstartrek.com/record. You can utilize that to send us a voicemail like Tarek and Jesse did earlier. Oh, I thought there was going to be I thought there's a sound effect after everything I say. Normally there's a sound effect.
I didn't know that you were going to pause just there.
All right, but I did.
Okay, I'll try to be more on my toes.
Okay.
Stop fidgeting.
Next up is social media. You ready for this, Dan?
What?
Okay. You can find us on social media at It's Got Star Trek.
You sack of amorphous shit!
In most of the places, definitely check out Bluesky. The Star Trek conversation is hopping there, but don't sleep on Mastodon.
What are you saying?
We're on Threads, we're on Facebook, we're on
Why do you care?
YouTube. And by the way, on YouTube, it would be a huge mitzvah for us if you could go to YouTube and subscribe to us. You don't have to listen to us there. Just
Maybe let it in. Make out with it a little.
Again, at It's Got Star Trek, you'll find us on YouTube. We put up all our podcasts there and the occasional video thing. So yeah,
we can come back from this.
Very helpful.
We can start over.
Don't forget, if you leave a review anywhere, leave a review and then let us know. Send us the link, and then we will, or just let us know that it's happened, and then Dan will write you a haiku review for a haiku.
Partaken?
Don't want to miss out on that. That's a
What'd you just say?
And we are very excited to say that Dan's algorithm has picked a good episode for us to discuss next week. I'm surprised this episode hasn't come up before. We will be discussing Star Trek TOS's first season classic, The City on the Edge of Forever.
Well, this is great.
Which is tangentially related to, actually not so tangentially related to Georgiou's Emperor Georgiou's story.
A happy bunch.
Indeed. Right. So I think I covered all the main bits at the end. Oh,
you're actually a Chaos Goblin, aren't you?
Don't forget, you can, of course, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/IGST. There's a bunch of cool stuff there, and we're adding more cool stuff all the time. And we'll start playing. We'll bring some of that stuff out of the Patreon. Some of the older Patreon stuff we'll start playing every now and then, putting that on the public feed so you guys can check it out and enjoy. We do.
What are you saying?
You're not pausing anymore. You said you were going to pause, and you stopped pausing.
I don't know. I didn't feel like it.
Well, you paused up to that point, and then you said you were going to. I said I'm ready for you to pause now, and then you stopped pausing.
I think you're supposed to intuit when I'm going to pause.
But you stopped pausing.
You used to be better at intuiting.
No. See, the moment I said I'll pay more attention, then you not one time did you pause since then.
I'm just trying to, keep you on your toes.
Oh, you motherfucker.
But yes.
If it were me, I would have murdered all of you already.
Really? No joke. There's a lot of fun stuff with the Patreon. A lot of it's non-Star Trek related.
You're a tyrant.
Good stuff. Go check out the free previews. Maybe you throw some bones, and if not, don't worry. We'll slowly but surely you'll get to see at least some of that stuff on the public feed. But yeah, that was an extra large episode of It's Got Star Trek. Hope you enjoyed it.
So tacky.
With luck, you guys haven't been tired of hearing about, complaints about the Star Trek 31, Section 31. Again, I'm glad they did it. I'm not glad that it turned out the way it is. It's a little boring, a little cliche, a little ridiculous.
That mine, double-dealing son of a bitch.
But I do want Paramount to keep trying stuff. Keep doing the stuff like the short treks, keep doing TV movies, try different formats. This is good. We want more Star Trek is better pretty much no matter what.
I can't.
That'll bite me in the ass at some point, me stating that. But any final comments, Dan or Jesse? You good to go? Good to end the podcast?
And the Ponfar cast? Is that what you said?
In the Ponfar cast?
Oh, we won.
Oh.
He won. They won the movie.
All right. So with that, we'll talk to you next week when we discuss The City on the Edge of Forever.
What do you think about this line?
She's got a stick so far up her backside, it's coming out her mouth.
Pretty gross.
Reel it in.
I mean, the visual is...
They should have just said butt instead of backside, but that's fine.
Okay. All right. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
So long, you big lumps of shite!
Who's flying that?
According to this sensor, there's one tiny life form on board, and it's heading right for us.
Plot missile lock.
We have trash, all right? Just trash.